The DNA test said 99.9% match. The boy in the photo had his eyes, and the woman who disappeared 7 years ago. She was wiping tables at a memory care facility at 2 a.m. just to keep him fed. Have you ever walked away from something precious, only to realize years later that you destroyed the best part of yourself? Zephyrin Callaway thought he had it all figured out. At 35, he was a self-made billionaire. His tech company, Callaway Technologies, had revolutionized business software. Forbes called him a visionary. Fast Company named him Entrepreneur of the Year. He had the penthouse, the private jet, the kind of success that made people stop and stare. But success has a price, and some debts can't be paid with money. 6 weeks ago, Zephyrin received an email that would shatter every carefully constructed wall he'd built around his conscience. The subject line read, "Does this child look familiar?" No message, just a photo attachment. A boy, maybe 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding up a science fair ribbon, and eyes, those unmistakable grey-blue eyes that Zephyrin saw every morning in the mirror. He'd deleted the email, told himself it was spam, a scam, someone trying to shake him down, but he couldn't delete the image from his mind. Those eyes haunted him through board meetings and investor calls, through dinners with Reverie Marchand, his fiancée, a venture capitalist with the right pedigree and the right connections, through sleepless nights in his San Francisco penthouse, where success felt increasingly hollow. 3 days later, he'd retrieved the email from trash and forwarded it to Marcus Webb, the private investigator his company kept on retainer. Find out who this child is. The answer came back 48 hours later, and it destroyed him. Ledger Kinsley, age 7, living in Asheville, North Carolina. Top of his class. Despite attending an underfunded public school, no father listed on birth certificate. Mother, Amoret Kinsley. The name hit him like a freight train he'd been standing in front of for 7 years without realizing it. Amoret, the woman he'd loved in college. The woman who'd made him believe he could change the world. The woman he'd ghosted when his company took off, because love felt like a distraction he couldn't afford. The woman who'd disappeared so completely that he'd convinced himself she'd moved on to someone better. She hadn't moved on. She'd been raising his son alone. Marcus's report was thorough, devastating. Amoret worked 2 jobs, night shift at Mercy Heights Memory Care Facility for $16.50 an hour, weekend shifts at Groundwork Coffee for $12 plus tips. She lived in a 1-bedroom apartment where she slept on the couch so Ledger could have the bedroom. Her car had a broken transmission she couldn't afford to fix, so she took the bus to work. At 2 a.m. in all weather, while Zephyrin had been building his empire, she'd been surviving on 3 hours of sleep and choosing between groceries and rent. While he'd been closing deals worth millions, she'd been working herself to exhaustion just to keep their son fed. Their son, Zephyrin, had demanded DNA confirmation. Marcus obtained a discarded juice box from Ledger's school. Ethically questionable, legally grey, but effective. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. The day those results came back, Zephyrin sat in his penthouse office overlooking the San Francisco Bay and broke, tears he hadn't cried since his father's funeral. Grief for 7 years he'd never get back. Shame that cut deeper than any business failure ever could. He had a son, a brilliant, beautiful 7-year-old boy who didn't know his name, and a woman he'd loved, maybe still loved, who had every reason to hate him. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here. What you're about to hear isn't a fairy tale. It's not a story about a hero swooping in to save the day. It's about choices and consequences. About the people we abandon and the walls we build to protect ourselves from. The truth. If you've ever wondered whether love can survive betrayal, whether forgiveness is possible after years of silence, or whether some mistakes are simply too big to fix, you need to hear this story. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what unfolds next will challenge everything you believe about redemption, responsibility, and what we owe the people who once held our hearts. Zephyrin Callaway was about to discover that building a billion-dollar company was easy compared to earning the trust of a woman he destroyed and a son who didn't know he existed. Now, sitting in his private jet as it descended into North Carolina, Zephyrin held that investigator's report like evidence at his own trial. Every page was proof of his failure. Every detail a reminder of what his ambition had cost. The photo of Ledger was paperclipped to the front. First place, science fair. The boy looked so much like him it was almost painful. But in the smile, in the light behind those eyes, Zephyrin saw Amoret, saw the intelligence and kindness that had made him fall in love with her a decade ago, before he'd been stupid enough to let her go. The plane touched down at 11:34 p.m. Zephyrin had a driver waiting, but he sent him away. He needed to think, needed to figure out what the hell he was going to say when he showed up at Mercy Heights memory care facility where Amoret was currently wiping down tables for $16.50 an hour. How do you apologize for 7 years of absence? How do you explain that you didn't know, when the not knowing was your fault? How do you ask for forgiveness when you don't deserve it? Zephyrin didn't have answers. All he had was the crushing weight of everything he'd done wrong and a desperate need to try to make it right, even if right was impossible, even if Amoret slammed every door in his face, even if his son looked at him with those grey-blue eyes and asked the one question Zephyrin couldn't answer. Where were you? The rental car, a Tesla because even in crisis old habits died hard, sat in the airport parking lot. Zephyrin got in but didn't start the engine, just sat there, staring at the photo of Ledger, trying to find the courage he'd somehow misplaced 7 years ago. His phone buzzed. Text from Reverie. When are you coming home? The wedding planner needs decisions. The wedding? Right, he was engaged. Getting married in 6 months to a woman who represented everything his life had become: strategic, polished, emotionally convenient. Nothing like what he'd had with Amoret. Zephyrin looked at the text, then at Ledger's photo. Then he started the car and drove toward the one place he'd been avoiding his entire adult life. The truth. 6 weeks earlier, Zephyrin had been in Tokyo closing a partnership deal with a Japanese tech conglomerate. The email arrived at 3:47 a.m. San Francisco time, which meant it hit his phone during the celebratory dinner. He'd glanced at it between courses. Sender address was a string of random numbers and letters, clearly a burner account. Subject: Does this child look familiar? His first instinct had been to delete it. His second had been to forward it to his security team. Wealthy people attracted all kinds of attention. Scammers, blackmailers, people who thought proximity to money meant opportunity. But something made him open it. The photo loaded slowly on the restaurant's mediocre Wi-Fi, line by line, revealing a child who couldn't have been more than 7. Science fair ribbon, huge smile, and eyes that stopped Zephyrin mid-sip of his whiskey. Everything okay? Reverie had asked from across the table. Fine, just work. He'd closed the email and tried to focus on the deal, tried to participate in the conversation about market projections and expansion timelines. But that photo stayed with him like a ghost. Back in his hotel room, he'd opened it again, zoomed in on the child's face, those eyes, that smile, something about the bone structure. It was ridiculous, probably photoshopped, definitely a scam. He deleted it. But at 4 a.m., unable to sleep, he retrieved it from trash and stared at it until sunrise. Who are you? He whispered to the photo. The boy didn't answer. But those eyes, those impossible familiar eyes, haunted him all the way back to San Francisco. 3 days after receiving the email, Zephyrin called Marcus Webb into his office. Marcus was 52, former FBI, and had worked for Callaway Technologies for 6 years handling sensitive investigations, corporate espionage, background checks on potential executives, the occasional personal matter that required discretion. I need you to identify someone, Zephyrin said, forwarding the email. The child in this photo. Find out who he is, who sent this, everything. Marcus studied the image on his tablet. Any context? None. Just the photo and a cryptic subject line. Could be anything. Extortion attempt, mistaken identity. You want me to trace the sender? Yes. But more importantly, I want to know who this child is. Marcus looked at him with the practiced neutrality of someone who'd seen everything. Any reason to believe there's a connection to you? Zephyrin hesitated. Just find him. Understood. Give me 72 hours. It took 60. Marcus returned with a file folder and an expression Zephyrin couldn't read. You're going to want to sit down for this. Zephyrin was already sitting, but something in Marcus's tone made his stomach drop. What did you find? The boy's name is Ledger Kinsley, 7 years old, lives in Asheville, North Carolina with his mother, Amoret Kinsley. No father listed on birth certificate. Attends Riverside Elementary, honor roll every semester. The room tilted. Amoret. Say that again, Zephyrin managed. Amoret Kinsley, age 33. 2 jobs, night shift at Mercy Heights Memory Care Facility, weekend shifts at Groundwork Coffee, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side of Asheville. No social media presence. No public records beyond employment and utilities. Zephyrin's hands were shaking. And the boy? Like I said, Ledger, 7 years old. Birth date puts conception approximately. Marcus checked his notes. Late March, early April, 8 years ago. Would that timeline align with anything in your personal history? It would. Perfectly. That had been the last month Zephyrin had been with Amoret, before he'd started his company and cut off all personal ties. I need DNA confirmation, Zephyrin said. That's going to be difficult without the mother's consent or a court order. I don't care about difficult. Make it happen. Marcus had paused. Mr. Calloway, if this child is yours, there are legal implications. Child support, custody. You should probably consult with... Just get me the DNA results. We'll handle everything else after. Marcus had nodded and left. For 10 days, Zephyrin existed in a state of suspended reality. Board meetings happened around him. Reverie talked about wedding venues and guest lists. His mother called with opinions about ceremony music. And all Zephyrin could think about was a 7-year-old boy in North Carolina who might be his son. The DNA results came back on a Tuesday. Marcus delivered them in person, file folder sealed, expression carefully neutral. Zephyrin opened it with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. The words blurred, refocused, blurred again. He had a son. Zephyrin dismissed Marcus, locked his office door, and fell apart. 7 years. 7 years of his son's life that he'd missed because he'd been too busy building a company to answer a phone call. He thought about all the moments he'd never get back. First steps, first words, first day of school, every birthday, every milestone, gone, because he'd decided that ambition mattered more than the woman he'd loved. The breakdown came in waves. First denial, this couldn't be real, the test was wrong, there had been a mistake. Then anger, at himself, at the universe, at the cruel math that gave him unlimited wealth but couldn't buy back a single day. Then grief, raw and ugly and all-consuming. He cried at his desk in his corner office overlooking the San Francisco Bay. Cried for the child he'd never known, for the woman he'd abandoned, for the man he'd become, someone who could build $1 billion empire but couldn't answer a simple phone call. His phone buzzed. Reverie calling. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Text this time. Where are you? The florist needs to know about centerpieces. Centerpieces. She was worried about wedding centerpieces while Zephyrin's entire world was collapsing. He typed back, handle it, I'm dealing with something. You're always dealing with something. The response felt accusatory and fair. He was always dealing with something, always busy, always distracted, just like he'd been with Amoret. Zephyrin pulled up her number, the old one, the one he'd blocked 7 years ago, and tried calling. Disconnected. Of course it was. She'd moved on, changed her number, built a life that didn't include him. He deserved that. He pulled up Marcus's report again, reading every detail. Amoret Kinsley worked 60-plus hours a week between 2 jobs. Made approximately $38,000 a year before taxes, took the bus because her car was broken, lived in a neighborhood where rent was cheap because everything else about it was rough, while he'd been celebrating quarterly earnings and acquisition deals, while he'd been flying first class and staying in penthouses, while he'd been building his empire, she'd been choosing between groceries and rent. The shame was physical, made him nauseous. Around 9 p.m., Reverie appeared at his office door. She had a key. Of course she did. They were engaged. "What's going on?" she asked. "You've been locked in here for hours." Zephyrin looked at her, beautiful, polished, perfect for his public image. A strategic partnership built on mutual benefit and shared ambition, nothing like what he'd had with Amoret. "I need to go to North Carolina," he said. "For what?" "Personal business." "What kind of personal business?" He almost told her, almost explained about the email and the DNA test and the son he'd just discovered. But something stopped him. Maybe cowardice. Maybe the knowledge that Reverie would see this as a complication to be managed rather than a life to be honored. "I can't explain right now. I just need to go. It's important." Reverie's expression hardened. "More important than our wedding planning? More important than the investor dinner Thursday?" "Yes." "Zephyrin, what is going on with you?" "I told you. I can't explain. Not yet. I just need you to trust me." "Trust you? You've been distant for weeks, distracted, and now you're flying across the country for personal business you can't explain? How am I supposed to trust that?" She was right. He was being unfair. But telling her about Ledger before he'd even met the boy felt wrong, like sharing something sacred before he'd earned the right. "I'll be back in a few days," he said. "We'll talk then. I promise." Reverie studied him with the analytical gaze she used in boardrooms. "Is there someone else?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" "It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated lately." She left without the wine she'd brought, without another word. Zephyrin sat alone in his office and knew he was about to lose everything that had defined him for the past 7 years. His company, his engagement, his carefully constructed life, and he didn't care. All he cared about was a 7-year-old boy in North Carolina who had his eyes and didn't know his name. The memories came unbidden, triggered by stress and grief. Amoret, in the university library, sophomore year. She'd been sitting at a corner table surrounded by physics textbooks, hair falling across her face as she worked through problem sets. Zephyrin had been there to meet his study group, but they'd been late, so he'd sat down across from her. "Mind if I wait here?" She'd looked up, assessed him in one glance, then returned to her work. Free country. Not exactly welcoming, but not dismissive either. "What are you studying?" he'd asked. "Quantum mechanics." "For fun?" That had earned him a smile. Small, but genuine. "Something like that. You?" "Business. Entrepreneurship. How to make a lot of money doing something that hopefully matters." "At least you're honest about the money part. Most people pretend it's all altruism." They'd talked until his study group finally showed up an hour later. Talked about everything. Physics and business, and whether success could be measured in anything other than profit. She'd challenged him, made him think, made him want to be better than the ambitious kid who cared more about winning than purpose. They'd exchanged numbers, started studying together. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks across campus. 3 months later, they were inseparable. Amoret had been different from anyone Zephyrin had ever known. She didn't care about his ambition or his plans for empire building. She cared about ideas, about making the world actually better instead of just more profitable. "What's the point of building something if it doesn't help people?" she'd asked once, lying on the roof of his apartment building, staring at stars they could barely see through the light pollution. Money helps people. Financial security, opportunities. Money helps people who have it. What about everyone else? That's why you build something successful first. Then you can give back. She'd rolled onto her side, looking at him with those dark eyes that saw straight through his rationalizations. "Or you build something good from the start. Revolutionary idea, I know." He'd kissed her to avoid answering, and she'd let him. They'd been happy. Genuinely happy in the way people are before life gets complicated and ambition starts demanding sacrifices. Then Zephyrin's startup accelerated. Series of funding came through. Investors started circling. Opportunities that required everything. His mentor, A successful entrepreneur who'd sold his company for hundreds of millions had been blunt. You can't build an empire with distractions, Zephyrin. Relationships, hobbies, anything that takes your focus away from the company. You're at the most critical stage. The next 2 years will determine everything. Choose now, the business or the girl. Zephyrin had told himself it was temporary, that he'd explain it to Amoret, that once the company was stable, they'd figure it out. Instead, he'd just stopped calling, stopped answering her texts, blocked her number when she kept trying to reach him, convinced himself that clean breaks were kinder than slow fades. He'd told himself she'd be fine, that she'd move on, find someone better, someone who wasn't obsessed with building a company that would change the world. He'd been wrong about everything. The memories played on loop as Zephyrin booked his flight to North Carolina, the library, the roof, the promises he'd made about always being honest, always being there, never becoming the kind of man who chose success over people. He'd broken every single one, and now he had to face the consequences. Marcus's complete investigative report was 53 pages. Zephyrin read it on the flight to North Carolina, each page adding weight to the guilt already crushing his chest. Subject: Amoret Kinsley, D.O.B., March 15, 1991. Current employment: Primary Mercy Heights Memory Care Facility, 2247. Oakwood Drive, Asheville, NC. Position: night shift. Nurse's aide, hours 9 p.m., 6 a.m., 5 nights per week. Hourly wage, $16.50. Annual income from this position, $25,000 before taxes. Secondary groundwork coffee, 412 Main Street, Asheville, NC. Position: barista. Hours, weekend shifts, typically 10 a.m., 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. Hourly wage, $12 plus tips. Estimated annual income, $13,000 before taxes. Total annual income, $38,000 before taxes. Zephyrin had spent more than that on a watch. The report continued. Residence: 847 Westmore Avenue, Apartment 2, C. 1. Bedroom apartment, 650 square feet. Rent, $875, month. Subject sleeps on couch. Bedroom reserved for son. Building maintenance issues documented. Faulty heating system, inadequate parking lot lighting, water damage in several units, unresolved for 8+ months. Vehicle: 2011 Honda Civic, 187,000 miles. Transmission failure occurred 3 weeks ago. Repair estimate, $1,800. Vehicle currently non-operational. Subject has been using public transportation since breakdown. Financial status: canned. No credit card debt, no credit cards. No student loan debt, dropped out junior year when pregnant. Medical debt, $847. Currently on payment plan, $25, month. No savings account activity detected. Checking account balance, typically $50 to $150 at any given time. Lives paycheck to paycheck, with zero financial cushion. Zephyrin had to stop reading, put the report down, breathe. She'd dropped out of school. Amoret, who'd been the smartest person in every room, who'd been on track for a physics degree and possibly graduate school, had dropped out because she'd been pregnant with his child. While he'd been accepting awards and making Forbes lists, he picked the report back up. Social connections. Minimal social presence. Primary support system. Mrs. Chen, neighbor, age 71, provides occasional childcare. One documented close friendship. Rhea Williams, co-worker at Mercy Heights. No romantic relationships detected in past 7 years. Social calendar consists entirely of work and child-related activities. No recreational activities or personal time observed. Subject's daily schedule, typical weekday. 6 a.m., wake leisure, prepare breakfast. 7:30 a.m., walk leisure to bus stop. 8 a.m., 2 p.m., sleep, interrupted, often partial. 2:30 p.m., pick up leisure from school. 3 p.m., 6 p.m., homework assistance, park time, dinner preparation, 6 p.m., 8:30 p.m., quality time with leisure, bedtime routine, 8:30 p.m., depart for night shift via bus, 45-minute commute, 9 p.m., 6 a.m., work, 6 a.m., return home via bus, repeat. Subject's daily schedule, weekend, 6 a.m., wake leisure, 7 a.m., drop leisure with Mrs. Chen, 9:30 a.m., 6:30 p.m., coffee shop shift, includes commute, 7 p.m., pick up leisure, evening routine, sleep when possible. Marcus had included a note. Subject operates on approximately 3 to 4 hours of sleep per night during weekdays, 5 to 6 hours on weekends. This schedule is unsustainable long-term and shows signs of taking physical toll. Subject has lost approximately 15 pounds in the past 6 months, based on photographic evidence. No evidence of substance abuse or mental health crisis, just extreme exhaustion from work demands. There were photographs. Amoret walking to the bus stop at 8 p.m., shoulders hunched against the cold. Amoret serving coffee with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Amoret sitting on a bench at the park, watching leisure play, looking so tired she might blow away. Zephyrin studied each photo like scripture, memorizing the changes 7 years had carved into her face, the weight she'd lost, the exhaustion that had settled into her bones, the life she'd built from scraps while he'd been building skyscrapers. The final section of the report covered leisure. Subject, Ledger Kinsley, DOB, January 12, 2017. Education, attends Riverside Elementary School. Current grade, 2nd. Academic performance, exceptional. Tested into gifted program. But school lacks resources for advanced placement. Teacher notes, extremely bright, curious, well-behaved, would benefit from enrichment opportunities. Family circumstances may limit access. Family circumstances, polite code for too poor. Interests, science, particularly astronomy and physics. Reading, advanced level, often checks out books intended for middle school students. Soccer, plays in recreational league. Mother attends every game despite work schedule. Health, generally healthy. 1 hospitalization, respiratory infection 6 months ago, 3-day stay. Medical bills from hospitalization, $2,400 after insurance. Currently on payment plan, allergies, peanuts, severe, carries EpiPen. Social development, well-adjusted, despite single-parent household. Popular with peers, described by teachers as kind and inclusive. No behavioral issues. Has asked mother about father on multiple occasions. Mother's response per interview with teacher who overheard, "Your daddy didn't know about you, sweetheart. It's complicated." Zephyrin had to stop reading again. Ledger had asked about him, had wondered where his father was. And Amoret had protected Zephyrin even in her answer. Hadn't poisoned their son against him, despite having every reason to. The final page of the report contained Marcus's professional assessment. Subject, Amoret Kinsley, has made no attempts to contact Zephyrin Calloway in past 7 years. No legal filings for child support. No attempts to leverage subject's wealth or public profile. Subject appears to have made deliberate choice to raise child independently rather than pursue financial assistance. Conclusion, no evidence of malicious intent, gold-digging behavior, or ulterior motives. Subject is simply a single mother doing her best with limited resources. The child in question appears healthy, happy, and well cared for, despite financial constraints. Recommend extreme caution in approach. Subject has built life without client's involvement and may view sudden appearance as threat rather than support. Zephyrin closed the report, looked out the airplane window at clouds that looked like cotton candy and meant nothing. He'd spent 7 years building an empire, while Amoret had been raising their son on $38,000 a year and 3 hours of sleep a night. He'd won awards while she'd been choosing between groceries and rent. He'd been flying private jets while she'd been taking the bus at 8 p.m. to her second job. The plane began its descent into North Carolina. Zephyrin had no idea what he was going to say when he saw her. No idea how to apologize for 7 years of absence. No idea if she'd even let him speak. All he knew was that he had to try, even if she hated him, even if she slammed every door in his face, even if his son looked at him and asked the one question Zephyrin couldn't answer, "Where were you?" The plane touched down at 11:34 p.m. Zephyrin Calloway, billionaire entrepreneur, sat in first class and realized that all his success meant absolutely nothing. If you're feeling the weight of this, if you're wondering whether showing up 7 years late is better than not showing up at all, I need you to stay with me. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you'd do in Amoret's position, slam the door or hear him out. And make sure you're subscribed, because what happens when these two finally come face to face is going to be intense. The alarm went off at 6 a.m., and Amoret's body protested before she was fully conscious. 3 hours of sleep. Again, she'd gotten home from Mercy Heights at 6:45 a.m., managed to shower off the smell of antiseptic and age, and collapsed on the couch around 7:15. Sleep had been immediate and insufficient. Now her phone was buzzing with its cheerful ringtone, some default melody she'd never bothered to change, and sunlight was stabbing through the cheap blinds that didn't quite close all the way. Amoret silenced the alarm and lay there for 30 seconds, taking inventory of her body, lower back, aching, shoulders, tight, feet, still throbbing from 8 hours on linoleum floors. Overall assessment, functional, good enough. She pushed herself upright, planted her feet on the worn carpet, and began the day. The apartment was small enough that she could see the whole thing from the couch. Kitchen to her left, barely bigger than a closet. Ledger's bedroom door to her right, closed. Bathroom straight ahead. Mirror she avoided looking at too closely because exhaustion had carved permanent shadows under her eyes. Coffee first. Always coffee first. The machine was cheap, $15 from a thrift store, but it worked. Amoret measured grounds with the precision of someone who'd optimized every expense, filled the reservoir with tap water, and pressed the button. While it brewed, she opened Ledger's door quietly. He slept like all children should sleep, deeply, trustingly, sprawled across his twin bed with his astronomy book still open beside him. He'd fallen asleep, reading again. The nightlight, a cheap plastic thing that projected stars across the ceiling, cast gentle light across his face. 7 years old, growing so fast she could barely keep up. He had his father's eyes. Amoret pushed the thought away like she always did. Ledger was hers, only hers. The man who'd contributed DNA had forfeited any claim when he'd stopped answering her calls 7 years ago. "Ledger," she said softly, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Time to wake up, baby." He stirred, face scrunching adorably before his eyes opened. Grey-blue, alert almost instantly. "Morning, Mama." "Morning, sweetheart. How'd you sleep?" "Good. I dreamed about the International Space Station. I was doing experiments on plant growth in zero gravity." Of course he was. Her brilliant, space-obsessed son who dreamed in scientific method. "Sounds like a good dream. Come on, let's get you ready for school." They moved through the morning routine with the efficiency of long practice. Ledger dressed himself. He'd insisted on doing it himself since he turned 6, while Amoret made breakfast, oatmeal, every morning. Cheap, filling, nutritious. She added cinnamon to make it interesting and, when she could afford it, fruit. Today she had a banana that was slightly too ripe but still good. She sliced it carefully, making sure Ledger got most of it. "Mama, can I ask you something?" Amoret's stomach tightened. That question always preceded something complicated. "Always, baby." Tommy's dad is helping coach soccer this year, and Marissa's dad came to career day last month. He stirred his oatmeal, not meeting her eyes. "Do you think my dad knows about me?" There it was. The question that came in different forms but always meant the same thing. Why don't I have what other kids have? Amoret set down her coffee and knelt beside his chair, eye level. "I don't know, sweetheart. But I know that you have me, and I love you enough for 2 parents. Is that okay?" Ledger considered this with the seriousness he applied to everything. "Yeah, that's okay. I was just wondering." "You can always ask me anything, Ledger. I might not have all the answers, but I'll never lie to you. Deal?" "Deal." He finished his oatmeal. Can we go to the park after school? Absolutely. Homework first, then park time. His smile was sunshine. You're the best, Mama. If only that were true. Amoret walked Ledger to the bus stop 3 blocks away. Other parents drove their kids in cars with functioning transmissions and air conditioning that worked. Cars that didn't require choosing between repair bills and groceries. She tried not to compare, tried not to feel the sting of inadequacy that came with being the parent at the bus stop instead of in the drop-off line. Ledger didn't seem to notice or care. He chattered about his science project, something involving plant growth and variables she'd helped him design, and the soccer game coming up on Saturday. You're coming, right, Mama? Wouldn't miss it. Even though you worked last night? Even though. He hugged her tight before the bus arrived. Love you, Mama. Love you more than all the stars. It was their thing, their ritual. Amoret held onto it like a lifeline. The bus pulled up, yellow and loud and safe. Ledger climbed aboard, found a seat, waved at her through the window. Amoret waved back until the bus turned the corner. Then she walked home alone, calculating the hours until she could sleep again. 8 a.m. Back in the apartment, Amoret locked the deadbolt, checked the windows, habits from living in neighborhoods where safety was a luxury, and collapsed onto the couch. Sleep should have come immediately. She'd been awake for 26 hours. Her body was screaming for rest, but her mind wouldn't shut off. The conversation with Ledger played on repeat. The question about his father, the quiet longing in his voice when he'd mentioned other kids' dads. She'd tried so hard to be enough, to fill both roles, to make sure he never felt the absence of something he'd never had. But children weren't stupid. They noticed gaps. Amoret stared at the ceiling, tracing the water stain from last winter's leak that management still hadn't fixed, and let herself think about Zephyrin for the first time in months. She'd loved him once, completely, recklessly, in the way you can only love someone before life teaches you that people leave. He'd been different then. Ambitious, yes, but not yet consumed by it. He'd talked about changing the world, and she'd believed him, believed in him. Then his company took off, and suddenly she couldn't reach him. Calls went to voicemail. Texts went unanswered. She'd told herself he was busy, that he'd call when things settled. When she'd found out she was pregnant, she'd tried harder, left voicemails explaining everything, sent emails, even showed up at his office once, only to be turned away by security. Then his mother had called. Amoret could still remember that conversation, the cold professional voice explaining that Zephyrin was focused on his career and not interested in complications from his past. The thinly veiled threats about legal action if Amoret continued to harass him, the check for $50,000 that arrived a week later, with a typed note suggesting she handle the situation appropriately. Amoret had torn up the check. She'd decided then that if Zephyrin wanted no part of their child, she'd make it easy for him. She'd disappear, raise Ledger alone, build a life that didn't need him. Pride? Maybe. Self-preservation? Definitely. She refused to force someone to love her son, refused to spend years fighting for scraps of attention from a man who'd made his priorities clear. So she'd vanished, changed her number, deleted her social media, moved to North Carolina where rent was cheaper and no one knew her story. And she'd survived, not thrived. Survival was all she had energy for, but survived nonetheless. Some nights, lying awake on this couch that served as her bed, she wondered what life would have looked like if Zephyrin had answered just one call. If he'd known about Ledger from the beginning, would he have stepped up? Would they have figured it out together? Or would he have resented the intrusion on his carefully planned empire? She'd never know, and she'd made peace with that. Mostly, Amoret's eyes finally closed. 3 hours until she needed to pick up Ledger. 3 hours to sleep and forget about questions that had no good answers. But even in sleep, she couldn't quite escape the past. Amoret woke to her alarm feeling like she'd slept for 10 minutes instead of 3 hours. Her body protested every movement. Joints stiff, head foggy, coffee only partially helping. This was the life. Chronic exhaustion, borrowed energy. running on fumes and stubbornness. But Ledger would be waiting, and she refused to be late. She changed into clean clothes, her afternoon shift outfit, slightly less worn than her work uniforms, and walked to the bus stop. Her car sat in the apartment complex parking lot, like a monument to problems she couldn't afford to solve. The transmission had been slipping for weeks before it finally gave out completely. $1,800 to repair, or $3,500 for a used replacement. Either way, money that might as well have been $1 million. The bus dropped her 2 blocks from Riverside Elementary. She arrived 5 minutes early and waited with the other parents, most of whom she recognized but didn't know. Friendly nods exchanged, but no real conversations. Amoret had learned not to get close to people. Friendships required time and emotional energy she couldn't spare. Better to stay polite but distant. The bell rang. Children poured out in a wave of backpacks and noise. Ledger spotted her immediately, face lighting up. "Mama!" He crashed into her with the force of someone who'd been storing up affection all day. Amoret hugged him tight, breathing in the smell of school, pencil shavings and cafeteria food and little boy sweat. "How was your day?" "Good. We learned about fractions in math, and Ms. Peterson said my essay on renewable energy was the best in class." Pride swelled in her chest. "That's my boy. I'm so proud of you." They walked to the small park 3 blocks away. Free entertainment. The best kind. Ledger ran to the playground equipment while Amoret sat on a bench, watching. Other kids played with expensive toys. Name-brand shoes. Snacks from the organic grocery store. Ledger's sneakers were worn so thin she could see his socks through the soles. He'd been wearing them for 8 months. Too long. He needed new ones desperately. But new shoes cost money. Money currently allocated to rent, groceries, utilities. The bus fare now that the car was dead. The field trip he wanted to attend. Amoret did the math in her head for the 1,000th time, trying to make numbers bend in ways they refused to. Paycheck from Mercy Heights, $1,200 after taxes. Paycheck from Groundwork Coffee, $400 including tips. Total, $1,600. Rent, $875. Utilities, $150. Groceries, $300 if she was strategic. Bus fare, $80. Medical payment plan, $25. That left $170 for everything else. Ledger's shoes. The field trip, $45. The copay from his last doctor's visit that she was still chipping away at. The math didn't work. It never worked. But she made it work anyway, through creative deprivation and sheer force of will. She ate less, so Ledger could eat more. Skipped the coffee shop coffee and made it at home. Wore clothes until they literally fell apart. "Mama, watch this." Ledger hung upside down from the monkey bars, grinning. "I see you. Be careful." He dropped down, landing in the wood chips, and ran over. "Can we get ice cream?" Amoret's heart clenched. Ice cream was $4.50 for 2 cones. $4.50 that could go toward his shoes, toward the field trip, toward the slowly growing pile of things they needed but couldn't afford. But he was 7, and he was asking for ice cream, not a gaming console, not expensive toys. Just ice cream with his mother on a Wednesday afternoon. She looked at his hopeful face and made the only choice that mattered. "Sure, baby, let's get ice cream." The joy on his face made the financial gymnastics worth it. Dinner was spaghetti with marinara sauce, garlic bread from the day-old rack at the grocery store, canned green beans, cheap, filling, nutritious enough. Ledger ate without complaint, never complained. He was the easiest child in the world, adaptable and cheerful, despite circumstances that would have broken other kids. He was better than this life. Better than 1-bedroom apartments and hand-me-down clothes, and a mother who was always tired. After dinner, homework, Ledger's math worksheet, and spelling words. Amoret helped where she could, though he was already surpassing her in some subjects. At 7:30, she started the bedtime routine. Bath, pajamas, teeth brushed. Story time. Tonight, a chapter from a book about Mars exploration they'd checked out from the library. Ledger listened with rapt attention, asking questions that proved he understood concepts most adults couldn't grasp. "Mama, do you think I could be an astronaut someday?" "I think you can be anything you want, baby. You're smart enough and brave enough for anything." "Even if we don't have a lot of money?" The question stabbed her, especially then. Some of the greatest people in history started with nothing. They just worked hard and never gave up. "Like you?" Amoret's throat tightened. "I'm not great, Ledger. I'm just doing my best." "That's what makes you great." She kissed his forehead, overwhelmed. "Sleep well. Dream about Mars." "I will. Love you, Mama. Love you more than all the stars." 8 p.m. Mrs. Chen knocked softly. Amoret opened the door to find her elderly neighbor already in her nightgown, hair in curlers. "He's asleep already," Amoret said. "Should be out until morning. Emergency numbers are on the fridge, like always." "We'll be fine, dear. You work too hard." "Not hard enough." Amoret grabbed her bag. The bus ride to Mercy Heights took 40 minutes. Amoret spent it staring out the window, watching neighborhoods shift from modest to rough to industrial. Her phone buzzed. Text from Rhea. "You working tonight?" "Yeah, you?" "Unfortunately. See you in hell." Amoret smiled, despite herself. Rhea was the closest thing she had to a friend. Everyone else at work was just too tired to connect. 9 p.m. She clocked in, tied her hair back, and started her rounds. Mercy Heights Memory Care Facility smelled like industrial cleaner and sadness. Patients in various stages of cognitive decline wandered halls or sat in common areas, lost in minds that no longer recognized the present. Amoret moved between them with practiced compassion, helping Mrs. Rodriguez back to her room, reminding Mr. Patterson that his wife had passed, watching his heart break fresh each time. Cleaning up messes without judgment. This was the job. Witnessing the slow erosion of self, the cruel theft of memory, comforting people who wouldn't remember her name 5 minutes later. Some nights, it broke her. Most nights she was too tired to feel anything at all. But it paid $16.50 an hour, and she had a son who wanted to go to space someday. 2:47 a.m. Break time. Amoret sat in the staff room with Rhea, both nursing coffee that tasted like regret. "You look extra dead tonight," Rhea observed. "Thanks. You're radiant as always." "I'm just saying, when's the last time you slept more than 3 hours?" Amoret couldn't remember. "I'm fine." "You keep using that word. You know what happens when you burn out? Who takes care of Ledger then?" It was the question that kept Amoret awake on nights when sleep should have come easily. She had no safety net, no family. Grandma Odeline had passed when Ledger was 6 months old. No savings, no backup plan. If she got sick or hurt, or simply couldn't maintain this pace, everything would collapse. "I'll be fine," she said again, because the alternative was unthinkable. Rhea studied her with knowing eyes. "You ever think about reaching out? To Ledger's dad?" Amoret's jaw tightened. "No. 7 years is a long time to carry everything alone. He made his choice. I made mine. And how's that working out?" "We're surviving." "Surviving isn't the same as living, honey." Amoret looked into her coffee cup. "It's all I've got." Rhea sighed. "I know. I just worry about you. About Ledger. You're running yourself into the ground, and one day something's going to give. Then I'll deal with it when it does. Or you could ask for help before it breaks you." "From who?" "There's no one, Rhea. It's just me and Ledger. That's it." "I know. I'm sorry. I just wish things were easier for you." "Me too. But wishing doesn't pay rent." They finished their break in silence, then back to the rounds. Back to the patients who wouldn't remember. Back to the work that never ended. At 6 a.m., Amoret clocked out, exhausted down to her bones. The bus ride home was a fog. She stumbled into her apartment at 6:52, just as Ledger was waking up. "Morning, Mama." "Morning, baby." And the cycle began again. This is Amoret's reality. This is the life she built alone, while Zephyrin was building his empire. But what she doesn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, is that the man who walked away 7 years ago is sitting in a hotel room less than 5 miles away, holding a DNA test and working up the courage to knock on her door. If you're invested in this story, if you're feeling the weight of what she's carrying, hit that like button and drop a comment. Does she owe Zephyrin anything? A conversation? A chance? Or should she protect herself and Ledger from more heartbreak? Subscribe if you haven't, because when these two worlds collide, everything changes. Zephyrin sat in his rental car outside Mercy Heights memory care facility for 20 minutes before finding the courage to walk inside. The building was nothing like the spaces he usually occupied. Single story, institutional beige, parking lot with more potholes than pavement. Fluorescent lights buzzed behind smudged windows. A hand-painted sign near the entrance read, "Mercy Heights, where every memory matters." His Tesla looked obscene in this parking lot, surrounded by vehicles held together with duct tape and hope, a visible monument to the inequality he'd spent 7 years pretending didn't exist. Through the glass doors, he could see a reception desk. A young woman in scrubs sat behind it, illuminated by harsh overhead lighting. Zephyrin checked his phone. 11:13 p.m. According to Marcus's report, Amoret was here, working, probably exhausted, definitely not expecting him. He'd rehearsed this moment 100 times on the flight. What he'd say, how he'd explain. The apology he'd crafted and revised until the words felt hollow. None of it felt adequate now. How do you apologize for 7 years of absence? How do you explain that you didn't know, when the not knowing was entirely your fault? He forced himself out of the car. The automatic doors opened with a mechanical wheeze. The smell hit him immediately. Antiseptic and age. That particular scent of medical facilities where people came to forget and be forgotten. The woman at reception looked up. She was young, early 20s, with kind eyes and a name tag that read, Janelle. "Can I help you?" Her voice was professional but curious. Well-dressed men didn't typically show up at 11 p.m. "I'm looking for Amoret Kinsley." Janelle's eyebrows rose slightly. "Are you family?" "I'm..." What was he? An old friend? The father of her child? A ghost from a past she'd deliberately buried? "It's personal. I need to speak with her. She's working. I can't just pull her from her rounds unless it's an emergency." "It's important." Janelle studied him with the practiced assessment of someone who dealt with difficult visitors. Her eyes moved from his expensive watch to his Italian leather shoes. Things that probably cost more than she made in a month. "I'll call her," she said finally. "But if she says no, you leave. We don't harass staff here." "Understood. Thank you." Janelle picked up the phone, pressed an extension. Zephyrin's heart hammered against his ribs. "Amoret?" "Yeah, sorry to interrupt. There's someone here asking for you. Says it's personal." Pause. Janelle's eyes flicked to Zephyrin. He didn't give a name. "Should I..." Another pause. Longer this time. Janelle's expression shifted to something between curiosity and concern. "Okay. I'll tell him." She hung up and looked at Zephyrin with an expression that suggested she was reconsidering her assessment of him. "She's coming out. You can wait over there." She gestured to a small seating area with chairs that had seen better decades. Zephyrin didn't sit. Couldn't. He stood near the window, watching the hallway, counting his own heartbeats. Footsteps. Soft-soled shoes on linoleum. And then she appeared. 7 years collapsed into nothing. Amoret walked down the hallway in scrubs that had been washed so many times the blue had faded to something closer to grey. Her hair was pulled back in a bun, practical and severe. She looked thinner than he remembered. Tired in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. But her eyes, those dark eyes that had once looked at him like he hung the moon, those were exactly the same, until she saw him. Then they went cold. Shock, recognition, and something darker flashed across her face in rapid succession. She stopped 3 feet from the reception desk, arms crossed over her chest. Expression carefully neutral, the kind of blank professionalism people use when they're screaming internally. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Zephyrin tried to find words. Any words. The apology he'd rehearsed evaporated like morning fog. "Hello, Amoret," he finally managed. His voice broke on her name. 7 years of silence, and that's all he could manage. "Hello." She didn't respond immediately, just studied him with an intensity that made him feel exposed, every failure laid bare under fluorescent lights. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, controlled, lethal. "You need to leave." Not, "What are you doing here?" Not, "How did you find me?" Just a simple directive, delivered with the finality of a door slamming shut. "I need to talk to you," Zephyrin said. "No, you need to leave. Now." "Amoret, please." "Don't." The word cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare come here after 7 years and act like you have any right to ask me for anything." Janelle had gone very still behind the reception desk, eyes wide, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. Zephyrin stepped closer. Amoret stepped back, maintaining distance like he carried something contagious. "I know I don't have the right," he said. "I know I don't deserve 5 minutes of your time, but I'm asking anyway. Please, just talk to me." "I'm working." "Then after your shift, or tomorrow, or whenever you say, I'll wait." Amoret's laugh was sharp and humorless. "You'll wait? That's rich. Where was this patience 7 years ago when I was calling you? When I was trying to tell you?" She stopped herself, jaw clenched. Aware of their audience. "I know about Ledger," Zephyrin said quietly. The name landed like a bomb. All the color drained from Amoret's face. Her hands, crossed over her chest, tightened into fists. "Get out," she whispered. "I have a son, you have a son, our son. I just found out 6 weeks ago and I don't care." Her voice was rising now, control slipping. "I don't care when you found out or how you found out. You don't get to show up here and say his name like you know him, like you have any claim to him. I want to meet him. I want to—" "No. Absolute. Final. You don't get that. You don't get to waltz back into my life because you suddenly grew a conscience." "Amoret, stop saying my name." Her eyes were bright now, tears she refused to let fall. "You lost the right to say my name when you blocked my number, when you ignored my emails, when your mother threatened me." Zephyrin froze. "What?" The confusion must have shown on his face, because Amoret's expression shifted slightly. Less anger, more bitter vindication. "You didn't know? Your mother called me, told me you wanted nothing to do with complications from your past, sent me a check for $50,000 and told me to handle the situation appropriately. So congratulations, Zephyrin. Your family made your priorities very clear." The world tilted. His mother had— "I didn't know," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I swear to you, Amoret, I didn't know about any of that. I didn't know about Ledger. If I had, you would have what? Shown up? Been a father?" She laughed again, the sound cutting. "Don't lie to me and don't lie to yourself. You made your choice 7 years ago. You chose your company, your success. You don't get to undo that now because it's convenient. It's not about convenience. It's about making this right." "You can't make this right." The words echoed in the small lobby. "You can't fix 7 years of him asking why he doesn't have a daddy. You can't fix the nights I worked myself sick to keep him fed. You can't fix any of it with your guilt or your money or whatever the hell you think you're offering." She was breathing hard, tears finally spilling over. Zephyrin felt his own chest constrict. I know I can't fix it, but I want to try. I want to be there for him, for both of you." "We don't want you there." The words hit like a physical blow. "I have to get back to work," Amoret said, voice shaking. She wiped her eyes roughly, pulling herself back together with visible effort. "Don't come here again. Don't try to contact me. Stay away from my son." She turned to leave. "Please," Zephyrin said desperately, "just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." She looked back at him one last time, and her expression was something worse than anger. It was pity. "You're 7 years too late, Zephyrin. Go back to San Francisco, back to your billion-dollar empire, back to whatever life you built without us. We're not part of it." Then she walked away, disappearing back down that hallway, leaving Zephyrin standing in a lobby that smelled like antiseptic and regret. Janelle cleared her throat softly. "Sir, I think you should go." Zephyrin nodded numbly and walked back to his car. Zephyrin didn't leave. He sat in his car, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the building. His mother had threatened Amoret, had sent money like the pregnancy was a problem to be solved rather than a child to be welcomed, had intercepted communications and kept him in the dark. And Zephyrin had made it easy by cutting Amoret off so completely that she'd had no way to reach him. The rage came in waves, at his mother, at himself, at the cruel mathematics of wealth and power that had allowed this to happen. But rage didn't change the past, didn't erase 7 years, didn't make Amoret trust him or Ledger know his name. He pulled out his phone and called Marcus. "I need everything on my mother's communications from 7 to 8 years ago. Phone records, emails, anything involving Amoret Kinsley or her family." "Mr. Calloway, it's almost midnight. I don't care what time it is. I need to know exactly what my mother did, how deep this goes. Can you do that or not?" Silence. Then, "I'll have something by morning." "Thank you." Zephyrin hung up and sat in the darkness, watching the building where Amoret was working. At 1:47 a.m., the front doors opened. Amoret walked out, bag over her shoulder, exhaustion in every line of her body. She moved toward the bus stop at the edge of the parking lot. The bus. She was taking the bus at 2 a.m. because her car was broken and she couldn't afford to fix it. Zephyrin got out of his car. "Amoret." She spun around, fury reigniting instantly. "Are you kidding me right now? I told you to leave." "I know. I'm sorry, but I can't. Not yet." He kept his distance, hands visible in a gesture of surrender. "Just 5 minutes, please. Then I'll go." "I don't want to hear it, Zephyrin. I didn't know about my mother, about the check or the threats. I didn't know she'd contacted you." "So what? That's supposed to make it better?" "No, nothing makes it better. But you deserve to know the truth. I was selfish 7 years ago. I got so wrapped up in building my company that I convinced myself relationships were distractions, that I'd deal with personal things later once I'd made it." He laughed bitterly. "I blocked your number because hearing your voice made me want to quit everything and come back to you. I was a coward. I am a coward." Amoret's arms were crossed again, body language screaming defense, but she hadn't walked away yet. "When I finally looked for you, years later, you'd disappeared," Zephyrin continued. "I told myself you'd moved on, found someone better. I had no idea you were pregnant, no idea I had a son, and I know that's not an excuse. I know I should have tried harder, should have been better." "You should have answered your phone," Amoret said flatly. "Yes, you're right. I should have." Silence stretched between them, heavy with 7 years of unspoken words. A car passed on the street behind them, headlights briefly illuminating them both before darkness returned. "Why are you here?" Amoret asked finally. "Really? Is this guilt? Some kind of midlife crisis? What do you want?" "I want to know my son. I want to be part of his life, part of your life if you'll let me." "You don't get to want that. You lost that right." "I know, but I'm asking anyway. I'm begging, Amoret. Give me a chance to make this right." "You keep saying that. Make it right. How?" Her voice cracked. "How do you make it right? How do you give back 7 years? How do you explain to a 7-year-old why his father wasn't there? Why you didn't care enough to find us?" "I don't know," Zephyrin admitted. "I don't have answers. All I have is the truth. I was wrong. I failed you both, and I want to spend whatever time I have left trying to be better." Amoret laughed, sharp and broken. "Whatever time you have left? You couldn't even manage 7 years." The words were designed to hurt, and they succeeded. "You're right," Zephyrin said. "You're absolutely right. But people can change, Amoret. Or at least they can try. People don't change. They just get better at hiding who they are." "Then let me prove you wrong." She stared at him, tears streaming down her face now, exhaustion and emotion finally breaking through. "Why now?" She whispered, "Why, after all this time?" Because I finally know, and I can't unknow it. I can't pretend I don't have a son. I can't go back to my life and act like you and Ledger don't exist. We managed to not exist for you for 7 years. And that's my shame to carry. But Amoret, please, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to let me back into your life as anything more than Ledger's father. I just want to meet him, to know him, to be there for him in whatever way you'll allow. The bus appeared in the distance, headlights cutting through the night. Amoret wiped her eyes roughly. He doesn't know about you. He's asked, but I've never told him your name, never showed him pictures. As far as Ledger knows, his father is just gone. What have you told him? The truth, that you didn't know about him, that you weren't ready to be a father, that it's complicated. She laughed bitterly. He's 7. Everything is complicated to him. He deserves better than complicated, Zephyrin said quietly. I know. That's why I've been killing myself to give it to him. You shouldn't have had to do it alone. But I did. That's reality, Zephyrin. You don't get points for showing up now with regret and good intentions. I'm not asking for points. I'm asking for a chance. The bus pulled up to the stop, brakes hissing. Amoret looked at it, then back at Zephyrin. I need to think, she said finally. This isn't a decision I can make at 2 in the morning in a parking lot. This is Ledger's life. I won't disrupt it just because you're feeling guilty. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. Don't wait here. Go back to your hotel. I'll contact you when I decide. If I decide. She turned toward the bus. Amoret, Zephyrin called. She paused, but didn't turn around. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know. I am truly, deeply sorry. Her shoulders tightened. Then she walked to the bus, climbed the steps, and disappeared inside. Zephyrin watched it drive away, taking with it the woman he'd once loved and the mother of his child, leaving him alone in a parking lot with nothing but regret and hope that felt far too fragile. Zephyrin didn't sleep that night. He sat in his hotel room, expensive, sterile, utterly devoid of anything that mattered, and replayed the conversation on an endless loop. He'd handled it wrong, said the wrong things, pushed too hard. But what was the right approach when you were trying to apologize for 7 years of absence? At 6:30 a.m., Marcus called. I have what you asked for. You're not going to like it. Send it to me. Already in your inbox, encrypted file, password is Ledger's birthday. Zephyrin opened his laptop. The file was there. He entered the password, 1,122,017. 12 documents loaded, phone transcripts, email exchanges, scanned letters. He started reading. Phone transcript, April 23, 2016. Caller, Amoret Kinsley. Recipient, Helena Calloway, Zephyrin's mother. Amoret, hello, Mrs. Calloway. This is Amoret Kinsley. I'm trying to reach Zephyrin, but he's not answering my calls. I was hoping you could. Helena, Miss Kinsley. I'm aware of who you are. Amoret. Oh, good. Then, maybe you can help me. I need to speak with Zephyrin. It's urgent. Helena, I'm afraid that's not possible. My son is focused on building his company. He's at a critical juncture in his career and can't afford distractions. Amoret, this isn't a distraction. This is important. I need to tell him. Helena, whatever you need to tell him can wait. Or, better yet, you can move on with your life and let him move on with his. Amoret, Mrs. Calloway, please. I'm pregnant. He has a right to know. Helena, pause. I see. And you're certain the child is his? Amoret, of course I'm certain. Helena, forgive my skepticism, but Zephyrin is a very successful young man. Women often see opportunities where none exist. Amoret, I'm not trying to trap him. I just think he should know he's going to be a father. Helena, what do you want? Money? Amoret, I don't want money. I want to talk to him. Helena, that's not going to happen, but I'll make you an offer. $50,000. You handle the situation however you see fit, and you never contact my son again. Are we clear? Amoret, I don't want your money. I want to talk to Zephyrin. Helena, the offer stands for 48 hours. After that, If you continue to harass my son, I'll have my lawyers pursue harassment charges. Do you understand? Amoret. Line disconnects. Zephyrin had to stop reading. Put the laptop down. Breathe. His mother had threatened her, had offered money to handle the situation, which could only mean one thing. He kept reading. The next document was an email exchange between Helena and her attorney, discussing potential legal ramifications of harassment claims and strategies for protecting Zephyrin's public image. Then came the letters. 12 letters from Odeline Kinsley, Amoret's grandmother, handwritten on stationery with flowers in the margins. Letter 1, May 15th, 2016. Dear Mr. Calloway, my name is Odeline Kinsley. I am writing on behalf of my granddaughter, Amoret, who has been unable to reach you through conventional means. I understand you are a busy young man with significant professional commitments. However, there are matters that require your attention. Amoret is pregnant with your child. She has tried repeatedly to inform you of this, but her attempts have been unsuccessful. I am not writing to demand anything, merely to ensure you are aware of the situation. What you choose to do with this information is your decision, but you deserve to know the truth. Please contact Amoret. She deserves at least a conversation. Respectfully, Odeline Kinsley. Polite, measured, giving him the benefit of the doubt. The letters continued, growing more desperate as months passed and Odeline received no response. By letter 6, her handwriting was shakier. Her tone had shifted from hopeful to resigned. Letter 6, September 3rd, 2016. Mr. Calloway, I have terminal cancer, stage 4. The doctors give me perhaps 6 months. This is my reality. But my concern is not for myself. It is for Amoret and the child she carries. My granddaughter will be alone when I am gone. No family left. Just her and your baby. I am writing to ask, not demand, but ask if you might reconsider your silence. Not for Amoret's pride, but for the practical reality of a young mother who will need support. I do not expect love or marriage, but perhaps some acknowledgement? Some assistance? Time is running short for me. I hope it is not too late for you to do the right thing. With hope, Odeline Kinsley. Zephyrin felt tears on his face. This woman, this dying woman, had spent her final months begging him to acknowledge his own child. And his mother had kept every letter, had filed them away like irrelevant correspondence. The final letter was dated 3 weeks before Odeline's death. Letter 12. December 28, 2016. Mr. Calloway, this will be my last letter. I do not have the strength for more. Amoret gave birth to a beautiful boy 3 weeks ago. Ledger, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, healthy, perfect. She named him after her late father, a strong name for what I hope will be a strong man. I will not live to see him grow. That is my sorrow. But my greater sorrow is that he will grow without his father. I hope someday you read these letters. I hope you feel even a fraction of the regret you should. And I hope you find a way to make peace with the choice you have made. But mostly, I hope Ledger never doubts his worth, because his father's absence says nothing about who he is and everything about who you are. May you find wisdom before it is too late. Odeline Kinsley. Zephyrin closed the laptop, sat in the silence of his hotel room, and understood the full scope of what his mother had done, what he had allowed to happen through negligence and cowardice. At 7:15 a.m., he called his mother. Helena Calloway answered on the second ring, voice crisp despite the early hour. Zephyrin, this is unexpected. Did you know about Ledger? Silence, long enough to confirm everything. I see you've been digging into the past, she said finally. Answer the question, Mother. Did you know I had a son? I knew that girl claimed you did, yes. That girl, not Amoret, not by name, just that girl who dared to complicate her son's trajectory. Zephyrin's hand tightened around the phone. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were 25 years old and on the verge of something extraordinary. Calloway Technologies was taking off. Investors were interested. Your future was being written. Her voice was matter-of-fact, as if explaining basic arithmetic. A pregnancy would have derailed everything. That wasn't your decision to make. Someone had to make it. You were too young and too sentimental to see the bigger picture. The bigger picture? Zephyryn's voice rose. I have a 7-year-old son I've never met. A child who's been growing up without a father because you decided my company was more important. And look what you built, Helena said calmly. $1 billion valuation, industry influence, everything we worked for. Would you have accomplished any of that with a screaming infant and a struggling girlfriend dragging you down? The casual cruelty stole his breath. Her name is Amoret, Zephyryn said through clenched teeth. And she wasn't dragging me down. She was the best thing in my life. Then why did you stop taking her calls? The question landed like a slap. Because Helena was right about that part. Zephyryn had made the initial choice to cut Amoret off. His mother had simply ensured it stayed permanent. I was an idiot, Zephyryn said. I was young and stupid and convinced myself success mattered more than love. But you're not young or stupid, Mother. You knew exactly what you were doing. I was protecting you. You were controlling me, and you robbed me of 7 years with my son. I did what any mother would do. I removed an obstacle. He's not an obstacle. He's a child, my child, your grandson. That seemed to give her pause. When she spoke again, her voice was slightly less certain. I assume you want me to apologize. I don't want your apology. I want to know what else you did. The whole truth. Now. Another silence. Calculation happening. She called 17 times, Helena said finally. Left 8 voicemails. Sent 12 emails to your personal account, the one you gave her. I had your assistant redirect them to me. You never saw any of them. 17 calls, 8 voicemails, 12 emails. Amoret had fought to tell him, and his mother had erased every attempt. When she wouldn't stop, I called her myself, Helena continued. Explained that you'd moved on, that you were focused on your career and weren't interested in complications. I offered her $50,000 to handle the situation. You mean to get an abortion? I meant to handle it however she saw fit. She refused the money, quite dramatically, hung up on me. There was almost respect in Helena's voice, which somehow made it worse. Then her grandmother called, Helena said. Odeline, lovely woman actually, very articulate. She sent letters, beautiful handwriting, very persuasive arguments about responsibility and family. Zephyryn's stomach dropped. Where are those letters? I kept them. They're in my private files. I had Marcus send them to you this morning. You read them and did nothing? I did what I thought was right, protected your future, our family legacy. Family legacy? Zephyryn's voice was dangerously quiet now. You destroyed my family to protect a legacy. You let a dying woman beg for months while you filed her letters away like junk mail. I made a difficult choice. No. You made a cruel choice, a selfish choice, and now I have to live with the consequences. We all have to live with consequences. That's life. Then here are yours. You're not part of this. Whatever relationship I build with Ledger, with Amoret, you're not part of it. You don't get to meet your grandson. You don't get to explain or apologize or play grandmother. You made your choice 7 years ago. Now live with it. Zephyryn, you're being unreasonable. I'm being clear. Stay away from them. Stay away from me until I decide if I can even look at you without wanting to. He stopped himself, took a breath. Goodbye, Mother. He hung up before she could respond, sat in his hotel room, hands shaking with rage and grief, and understood that the woman who'd raised him had also destroyed the most important relationship of his life. And he'd let her, through ignorance, yes, through negligence. But he'd created the conditions that allowed it to happen. Now he had to find a way to fix it, if fixing it was even possible. If this is hitting you, if you're feeling the weight of what Helena did and what Zephyryn lost, I need you to engage. Hit that like button. Drop a comment. Can you forgive someone who kept a grandchild's secret? Would you cut your own mother out of your life for this? And subscribe, because what happens next when Zephyrin tries to prove he's changed, is going to determine everything. Amoret rode the bus home in a daze. 2:34 a.m. The bus was nearly empty. Just her, the driver, and a man sleeping in the back row who looked like he'd had a rougher night than she had. Her phone buzzed. Text from Ria. "You okay? Janelle said some guy showed up asking for you." Amoret stared at the message. How did she even begin to explain? "I'm fine. Long story. Talk tomorrow." She put the phone away and pressed her forehead against the cold window. Zephyrin was here. In North Carolina, he knew about Ledger. 7 years of careful distance, of building a life that didn't need him, shattered in one conversation. He'd looked older, sharper, wealthier, though that was obvious from the suit alone. But his eyes were the same, those grey-blue eyes that Ledger had inherited, that she saw every single day in her son's face. The bus lurched to a stop 3 blocks from her apartment. Amoret got off, walked home on autopilot. Mrs. Chen was asleep on the couch. She always stayed until Amoret got home, refused payment, just wanted to help. Amoret covered her with a blanket and checked on Ledger. He slept peacefully, astronomy book still open beside him, face relaxed, innocent, unaware that his entire world might be about to change. Amoret sat on the edge of his bed, watching him breathe. What was she supposed to do now? Zephyrin wanted to meet him, wanted to be part of his life, and part of her, the part that was so tired of carrying everything alone, wanted to let him. But the bigger part, the protective part, screamed danger. He'd left once. He could leave again. And this time, Ledger would know what he'd lost. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "It's Zephyrin. I got your number from the investigator. I'm sorry for using it without permission, but I needed you to have a way to contact me. This is my cell. Use it or don't. But I'm here, and I'm not leaving until we talk. Really talk. Z." Amoret stared at the message. 7 years ago, she would have given anything to see those words. Now they just felt like another complication in a life that was already too complicated. She didn't respond, just saved the number under Z and turned off her phone. Sleep didn't come easily. When it finally did, she dreamed of the library where she'd first met him, of the roof where he'd promised her the world, of all the moments that had felt so real before he'd walked away. The following night at Mercy Heights, Ria cornered her during their break. "All right, spill. Who was expensive suit?" Amoret sighed. "Ledger's father." Ria's eyes went wide. "Excuse me?" "He showed up last night. Said he just found out about Ledger. Wants to meet him." "Holy hell. What did you say?" "I told him to leave. That he doesn't get to show up 7 years later and play daddy." "And did he leave?" "Eventually. After waiting in the parking lot for my shift to end, so he could ambush me at the bus stop." Ria leaned back in her chair. "Persistent. I'll give him that." Persistent or stalking? Thin line. Fair, but real talk. What are you going to do? "I don't know. He says he didn't know about Ledger until 6 weeks ago, that his mother interfered, kept my calls and emails from reaching him." "Do you believe him?" That was the question, wasn't it? "I don't know," Amoret admitted. "Part of me wants to believe he would have shown up if he'd known, but the other part remembers how easily he cut me off, how he blocked my number and moved on like I'd never existed." "People change," Ria said carefully. "Do they? Or do they just get better at hiding who they are?" "Sometimes both, sometimes neither. But honey, you can't make this decision based on 7-year-old hurt. You have to think about Ledger, about what's best for him." What's best for him is not getting attached to someone who's going to disappear when things get hard. What if this guy doesn't disappear? What if he actually steps up? Then great, fantastic. But I'm not betting my son's emotional well-being on what if. Ria was quiet for a moment. "Can I say something you're not going to like? When has that ever stopped you? You're scared, and you have every right to be. But you're so focused on protecting Ledger from potential hurt that you might be protecting him from having a father. Is that really what's best?" The words hit harder than Amoret wanted to admit. "I'm not ready," she said quietly. "That's okay. You don't have to be ready. But at some point, you're going to have to make a decision. And whatever you decide, Ledger deserves to be part of that conversation. He's 7. He's 7 and smart as hell. He knows something's up. He asks about his dad all the time. What are you going to tell him when he's old enough to ask why you didn't let them meet? Amoret didn't have an answer for that. 2 days after Zephyrin's appearance, Ledger asked the question Amoret had been dreading. They were at the park after school, Ledger on the swings. Amoret pushing him. "Mama, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Tommy's dad is coming to coach soccer, and I was thinking, does my dad know I exist?" Amoret's hands froze mid-push. "What makes you ask that?" "Because if he knew about me, wouldn't he want to meet me? Unless—" Ledger dragged his feet in the dirt, stopping the swing. He turned to face her. "Unless he knows and just doesn't want to. Is that it?" "No, baby, that's not it." "Then what is it?" Amoret sat down on the swing beside him. Eye level, honest. "Your dad didn't know about you for a long time. When you were born, I tried to tell him, but I couldn't reach him. He was busy with work, and we lost touch." "But he knows now?" "How did Ledger—" "Why do you ask?" "Because you've been weird the last couple days, all worried and checking your phone, and Mrs. Chen said a man came to the building asking about you. Nothing got past this kid." "Yes," Amoret said carefully. "He knows now." Ledger's face lit up. "Really? So he's coming? To meet me?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart. It's complicated." "Why is it complicated?" "Because he's been gone for your whole life, and I need to make sure that if he comes into your life, he's going to stay. I don't want you to get hurt." "What if I want to meet him anyway?" "Then we'll talk about it. Together. But I need some time to figure things out first. Can you be patient with me?" Ledger nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. Too thoughtful for 7. "Mama, if he wanted to know me, would you let him?" The question was so direct, it took her breath away. "Yes," she said honestly. "If I thought he was serious. If I thought he wouldn't leave again. Yes, I would let him." "Okay. Then I'll wait. But Mama?" "Yeah, baby?" "Don't wait too long. I'm not getting any younger." Despite everything, Amoret laughed. "You're 7. "Exactly. 7 whole years. That's a lot of time." He was right. 7 years was a lot of time. Too much time to have missed. And maybe, too much time to keep them apart any longer. For 2 weeks, Zephyrin stayed in North Carolina. He didn't contact Amoret again, didn't show up at her work or her apartment, just waited, like he'd promised. But waiting didn't mean doing nothing. He researched Riverside Elementary, learned about their underfunded gifted program, made an anonymous donation large enough to fund it for 5 years. He researched Mercy Heights Memory Care Facility, learned about their equipment needs, made another anonymous donation. He found out which soccer league Ledger played in and made a donation to cover registration fees for every child whose family qualified for financial assistance. Nothing with his name attached. Nothing that could be traced back to him. Just money where it was needed most. He also called Reverie. "We need to talk," he said. "Finally, I was beginning to think you'd moved to North Carolina permanently." "I might have." Silence on the other end. "You're serious?" "I have a son, 7 years old. I just found out about him. His mother, Amoret, she's here. I need to be here too." "So that's it? You're just throwing away our engagement? Our plans?" "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm making a choice I should have made 7 years ago." "And what about me? What about us?" "I don't think there's ever been an us, Reverie, not really. We've been a strategic partnership. Good on paper, beneficial for both our careers, but we don't love each other. We never have." He expected anger, tears, something. Instead, Reverie laughed, bitter but real. "You're right, we don't. I've been telling myself we do, but you're right." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Better to know now than after the wedding. I just wish you'd told me about the kid before I started planning centerpieces." "I know. I handled this badly." You handled it like you handle everything, by yourself, without letting anyone in. Good luck with that, by the way. Kids require vulnerability. She hung up. Zephyrin sat in his hotel room and added reverie to the list of relationships he'd destroyed through selfishness and cowardice. But at least this one ended honestly. On day 14 of silence from Amoret, Zephyrin's phone finally buzzed. Meet me. Saturday. Park near Riverside Elementary. 2 p.m. We talk. That's it. Zephyrin stared at the message like it might disappear, then typed back, I'll be there. Thank you. Her response was immediate. Don't thank me yet. This isn't forgiveness. This is me hearing you out. Bring honesty, not excuses. Understood. Saturday was 3 days away. 3 days to figure out what to say to the woman he'd loved and abandoned. 3 days to prepare for a conversation that would determine whether he'd ever meet his son. 3 days felt like both too much time and nowhere near enough. Saturday came too fast and too slow. Amoret had changed the location via text Friday night. Not the park, too public. Groundwork coffee, 2 p.m. I'm not working so we can actually talk. Zephyrin arrived at 1:45 p.m. The coffee shop was exactly as Marcus's report had described it. Small, worn, welcoming, mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, the smell of espresso and baked goods. Amoret was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She'd dressed carefully, jeans and a simple shirt, armor of normalcy. She looked tired, but then, she always looked tired. Zephyrin approached slowly. Thank you for agreeing at armor of normalcy. She looked tired, but then, she always looked tired. Zephyrin approached slowly. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Sit. I already ordered. Black coffee. That's still how you take it, right? Yeah, you remembered. I remember a lot of things, not all of them good. Fair point. They sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop hummed with Saturday afternoon energy around them. Couples on laptops, students studying, normal people living normal lives. I read the letters, Amoret said finally. The ones your mother kept. You sent them to me. I thought you should see them. See what your grandmother wrote, what she went through trying to reach me. Amoret's eyes were bright with unshed tears. She never told me she'd written to you. She got sicker and sicker, and I thought she'd accepted that you weren't coming, that we were on our own. She was protecting you, didn't want you to carry more pain. And your mother was protecting you. Funny how protection looks a lot like cruelty depending on where you're standing. Zephyrin couldn't argue with that. I ended my engagement, he said. Amoret's eyebrows rose. When? 2 weeks ago, right after I came here. Reverie deserved someone who actually loved her. That wasn't me. So you just blew up your life? Just like that? My life needed blowing up. It was built on the wrong foundation. Amoret studied him. And what foundation are you building on now? The truth. However ugly it is, I was selfish. I prioritized success over people, over you, and now I have a 7-year-old son who doesn't know my name because I was too cowardly to answer a phone call. You really didn't know? Amoret asked quietly. About the calls? The emails? Not until 2 weeks ago when I confronted my mother. She admitted everything. The interception, the threats, the money. All of it. And you believe her? Unfortunately, yes. My mother is many things, but she doesn't lie when confronted directly. She genuinely thought she was doing the right thing, protecting my future. By destroying mine. Yes. They sat with that truth between them. What do you want, Zephyrin? Really? I want to meet Ledger. I want to know my son. I want to be part of his life in whatever capacity you'll allow. And when it gets hard, when being a father interferes with business or becomes inconvenient, what happens then? Then I deal with it, because he comes first. He should have always come first. Pretty words, but words are easy. Then let me prove it with actions. Let me show you I'm serious. Amoret took a sip of her coffee. I have conditions. Anything. Don't say anything until you hear them all. Zephyrin nodded. First, you don't get to meet him yet. Not until I'm sure you're going to stick around. I won't have him get attached to someone who's going to disappear. How long? As long as it takes for me to trust you won't bail. Could be weeks. Could be months. Can you handle that? Yes. Second, when you do meet him, it's supervised. I'm present for every interaction until I decide otherwise. You don't get alone time until you've proven you're consistent. Agreed. Third, no extravagant gifts. No using money to buy his affection. You want a relationship with him, you earn it through time and presence, not through being the rich dad who shows up with toys. Understood. Fourth, you respect my authority as his mother. I've made every decision for 7 years. You don't undermine me, you don't contradict me. We're partners in this, or you're out. Absolutely. Fifth, and this is the most important one, if you hurt him, if you make promises you don't keep, if you let him down in any way, I will take him somewhere you will never find us. I've disappeared once, I can do it again. Do you understand? The threat was delivered with quiet certainty. Zephyrin didn't doubt she meant every word. I understand, and I won't. I swear to you, Amoret, I won't fail him again. She studied him for a long moment. I want to believe you, part of me does. But trust isn't given, Zephyrin, it's earned. You destroyed mine 7 years ago. Now you have to build it back from nothing. I know, and I will, however long it takes. It's going to take a while. I've got time, I'm not going anywhere. Something in Amoret's expression softened, just slightly. We'll see. They finished their coffee in silence that felt less hostile than before, not comfortable but not combative either. As they stood to leave, Amoret paused. Zephyrin, one more thing. Yeah? Thank you for the donations to the school and the soccer league. Riley told me about the anonymous donor. That was you, wasn't it? I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. But she almost smiled. It was a good thing to do, but don't think it buys you anything. I don't. I just wanted to help. Then keep helping, but quietly. Ledger doesn't need to know his father is a billionaire. Not yet, maybe not ever. Let him know you as a person first. I can do that. Amoret nodded and walked away, leaving Zephyrin standing in the coffee shop with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Real talk. Is Amoret being too cautious, or is she doing exactly what a mother should do? Drop a comment with your take. Hit that like button if you're feeling this story. And make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next, when Zephyrin finally meets Ledger, is going to be everything. 3 weeks passed before Amoret texted again. Zephyrin had stayed in North Carolina the entire time, working remotely, attending virtual board meetings, fielding increasingly hostile emails from investors who wanted to know when he was coming back to San Francisco. He wasn't going back, not permanently. He'd already started the process of transitioning from CEO to chairman, promoting his COO to take over day-to-day operations. His mother had called twice. He'd ignored both calls. Then, on a Tuesday evening, his phone buzzed. Saturday, Riverside Park, 3 p.m. Bring a book or something. Look casual. Don't approach us. Just be there. Zephyrin read the message 3 times, heart racing. Just be there. That meant Ledger would be there. He'd finally get to see his son in person. Saturday took forever to arrive. Zephyrin showed up at 2:45 p.m. with a paperback he'd grabbed from the hotel lobby. Some thriller he had zero interest in reading. He found a bench with a clear view of the playground and sat down. Book open, but unread. At 3:07 p.m., Amoret arrived with Ledger. Zephyrin's breath caught. The boy was wearing a soccer jersey, red and white stripes number 7, and carrying a ball under his arm. He ran ahead to the field where other kids were already playing, calling out greetings to teammates. Amoret walked past Zephyrin's bench without acknowledging him, found her own spot on the opposite side of the playground, close enough to supervise, far enough to give space, and Zephyrin watched his son play. Ledger was good, not prodigy level, but skilled for 7. He had decent ball control, understood spacing, called out to teammates with surprising tactical awareness. But what struck Zephyrin most wasn't the skill, it was the joy. Ledger played like winning didn't matter. like the scoreboard was irrelevant. He celebrated other kids' goals as enthusiastically as his own, helped a smaller child who'd fallen, shared his water bottle without being asked. This was the child Amoret had raised, kind, generous, secure enough in himself to lift others. Zephyrin felt pride and shame in equal measure. Pride that his son was this person. Shame that he'd had nothing to do with it. Every gesture, every expression, some were Amoret's. The way he tilted his head when thinking, the careful concentration when he tied his shoe. But some were Zephyrin's own. The competitive fire when playing, the way he ran his hand through his hair when frustrated, the smile that was pure Callaway genetics. The game ended after about 40 minutes. Kids dispersed to parents. Ledger jogged over to Amoret, sweaty and grinning. From across the playground, Zephyrin could see them talking. Ledger gesturing animatedly about something, Amoret laughing at something he said, the easy intimacy of their relationship. A relationship Zephyrin desperately wanted to be part of. Then Ledger glanced around the playground. His eyes swept past Zephyrin's bench, then returned, made eye contact. For 3 seconds, they looked at each other. Ledger offered the polite smile children give strangers. Zephyrin smiled back, heart hammering. Then Ledger turned back to his mother, and the moment was over. But those 3 seconds played on repeat in Zephyrin's mind for the rest of the day. His son had looked at him, had smiled at him. It was pathetic how much that meant, but it meant everything. 1 week later, another text. Same place, tomorrow, 2 p.m. I'll introduce you. Don't make it weird. Don't make it weird. As if meeting your 7-year-old son for the first time, while pretending to be your ex-girlfriend's old friend, wasn't inherently weird. Zephyrin arrived early again. Same bench. Same unopened book. At 2:03 p.m., Amoret and Ledger arrived. This time Ledger spotted him immediately. Hey, it's the guy from last week. Amoret looked at Zephyrin, then back at Ledger. You noticed him? Yeah. He was reading on that bench. Is he here again? Looks like it. Come on, let's go say hi. They walked over together. Zephyrin stood as they approached, heart in his throat. Ledger, this is Mr. Callaway, Amoret said carefully. He's an old friend of mine from college. Old friend, the understatement of the century. Hi, Ledger said, polite but curious. Hi, Ledger. You can call me Zephyrin, or Z, if that's easier. Z, I like that. It's easier to remember. Ledger studied him with open curiosity. You were here last week too, right? I was. I saw you playing soccer. You're really good. Ledger's face lit up. Thanks. I'm trying to get better at corner kicks. Mama says practice makes progress. Your mama's right about that. She's right about a lot of things. Amoret's eyes met Zephyrin's over Ledger's head. A moment of shared understanding. Did you see my pass in the second half? Ledger asked, the one that set up Tommy's goal? I did. That was great positioning. Do you play soccer? I used to, not as well as you. Maybe you could play with us sometime, if you want. The invitation was so casual, so innocent. Ledger had no idea he was offering his father a lifeline. I'd like that, Zephyrin said, voice rough. I'd really like that. Amoret cut in gently. We should let Mr. Callaway get back to his reading, Ledger. Oh, but Mama. Now, please. Ledger turned back to Zephyrin. Bye, Z. Bye, Ledger. They left. Zephyrin sat back down on the bench, hands trembling. His son had invited him to play soccer. It was the smallest thing, meaningless to Ledger, everything to Zephyrin. He stayed on that bench until sunset, replaying the conversation, memorizing every detail of Ledger's voice. The meetings became more frequent after that. Wednesday, at the library. Ledger was doing homework. Zephyrin happened to be there reading. They sat at nearby tables. Ledger asked for help with a math problem. Zephyrin showed him a different way to think about fractions. Saturday at the park again. This time, they kicked the soccer ball around for 20 minutes. Zephyrin taught him a move he remembered from high school. Ledger taught him a celebration dance he'd learned from YouTube. The following Wednesday, Amoret texted, "Groundwork coffee, 4 p.m. He wants to show you his science project." Zephyrin arrived to find Ledger at a corner table with a cardboard solar system model. "Z, look what I made." For the next 45 minutes, Ledger explained planetary orbits, the difference between terrestrial and gas giant planets, why Pluto wasn't a planet anymore, a fact he was clearly still upset about. Zephyrin listened like it was the most important lecture he'd ever heard, because it was. This was his son's passion, his joy, the thing that lit him up from the inside. "You're going to be a scientist one day," Zephyrin said when Ledger finally paused for breath. "Maybe. Or an astronaut. Or both. Can you be both?" "I think you can be anything you want." "That's what Mama says too." "Your Mama's very smart." Ledger looked at him with sudden seriousness. "Do you like my Mama?" The question caught Zephyrin off guard. Amoret, sitting at a nearby table pretending to read, went very still. "I do," Zephyrin said carefully. "I like her very much. I always have." "Then why don't you see her more? Like, not just at the park with me?" "It's complicated, buddy." Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain things. "Fair point. You're right," Zephyrin admitted. "The truth is, your Mama and I knew each other a long time ago. Then life got complicated and we lost touch. Now I'm trying to be friends with her again, but that takes time, especially when you've hurt someone. You have to earn their trust back." Ledger considered this. "Did you hurt Mama?" "Yeah, I did. Not on purpose, but I hurt her anyway." "Did you apologize?" "I did. But sometimes sorry isn't enough. Sometimes you have to show people you mean it by doing better." Ledger nodded slowly, processing with his characteristic seriousness. "Mama says actions matter more than words." "Your Mama's right about that too." "Okay, well, I think you're doing good so far." From her table, Amoret made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I appreciate that, Ledger. It means more than you know." "You're welcome. Can we get hot chocolate?" "Absolutely. My treat." They ordered hot chocolate, Ledger's with extra whipped cream, and talked about Mars exploration and whether humans would ever live on other planets. When they finally left, Ledger gave Zephyrin a high five. "See you later, Z." "See you later, Ledger." After they were gone, Zephyrin sat in the coffee shop and realized he was crying. His son had high-fived him. It was pathetic how much that meant, but it meant everything. 2 months into the arrangement, something shifted. Amoret started texting Zephyrin outside of scheduling meetings. Small things at first. "Ledger aced his math test. Wanted you to know. He asked if you like astronomy. Do you? Soccer game Saturday at 10 a.m. if you want to come." Zephyrin responded carefully. Didn't push, didn't assume the texts meant more than they did. But they felt like progress. One evening, after a particularly long shift at Mercy Heights, Amoret called him. "Can you talk?" "Always. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I've been thinking about what you asked, about why I didn't fight harder to tell you about Ledger." Zephyrin sat up in his hotel room, phone pressed to his ear. "Okay." "I was scared," she said quietly. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. Grandma Odeline was sick. I was barely making rent. And the person I'd loved, the person I'd thought loved me, had vanished." "Amoret, let me finish, please." "Sorry, go ahead." "I tried to reach you. I called, I emailed, I showed up at your office, and every attempt was met with silence or rejection. Your mother called me, and I realized that even if I got through to you, you didn't want me, didn't want us. So I made a choice. I decided that if you didn't want to be part of our lives, I'd make it easy for you. I'd disappear, raise Ledger alone, protect him from the rejection I'd felt. That must have been incredibly hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I'd do it again to protect him. I understand, and I'm sorry I put you in that position. I know you are, and I'm starting to believe you mean it." The admission hung in the air between them. "What changed?" Zephyrin asked. "Ledger, He's happy, happier than I've seen him in a long time. He talks about you constantly. Z said this. Z taught me that. You're becoming important to him. Is that okay? I don't know yet, but it's happening. I won't let him down, Amoret. I swear. You better not, because if you do, you're not just hurting him. You're proving me right, and I really, really don't want to be right about you. They talked for over an hour. About the past, about Ledger, about the impossibility of the situation they were navigating. When they finally hung up, Zephyrin felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for his relationship with Ledger, but for the possibility of something more with Amoret. He didn't know if she felt it too. Didn't know if the walls around her heart would ever fully come down. But for the first time, he thought maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. 3 months into their arrangement, Ledger started asking when Z was coming back. Mama, is Z coming to my game Saturday? Can we invite Z to the Science Museum? I made a drawing for Z. Can I give it to him next time? Amoret watched her son's attachment grow with mixed feelings. Pride that Ledger was opening his heart. Fear that it would get broken. One evening after bedtime, Ledger called her back into his room. Mama, can I ask you something? Always, baby. Is Z going to stay, like keep coming around? I think so. Why? Because I really like him. He's nice, and he knows about space, and he listens when I talk. I don't want him to leave. Amoret's heart clenched. I don't think he's going to leave, sweetheart. But you don't know for sure. No, I don't know for sure. Nobody can know the future. Ledger was quiet for a moment. I wish he was my dad. The words landed like a bomb. Amoret sat down on the edge of his bed, carefully choosing her words. What makes you say that? Because dads are supposed to show up to games and help with homework and care about what you like, and Z does all that stuff. So I wish he was my dad instead of just Mama's friend. Would it change anything if he was your dad instead of just a friend? I don't know. Maybe. I think I'd feel more, I don't know the word, like he wouldn't leave because dads don't leave their kids, right? Oh, sweetheart. Some dads do leave, Amoret said gently. Not because their kids aren't wonderful, but because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. But the good dads, the ones who really care, they stay, no matter what. Do you think Z would stay, if he was my dad? I think Z is trying very hard to be someone you can count on. But you don't trust him yet. I'm learning to trust him. That takes time. Ledger nodded, satisfied enough with that answer. Okay. Night, Mama. Night, baby. Love you more than all the stars. Love you more than all the planets. After she left his room, Amoret texted Zephyrin. We need to talk. Soon. Ledger's getting more attached and I think it's time. His response came immediately. Time for what? Time to tell him the truth, that you're his father. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He deserves to know. And you've proven yourself. You've shown up, been consistent, kept your promises. I think you're ready. When? I need a few days to figure out how to tell him. But soon, be ready. I've been ready for 7 years. Amoret stared at the message, then typed, No, you've been ready for 3 months. 7 years ago you weren't ready at all. But now you might be. She didn't wait for his response, just turned off her phone and went to bed, knowing that everything was about to change. If you're invested in this moment, if you're feeling the weight of what's about to happen when Ledger learns the truth, I need you to engage. Hit that like button. Comment below. Should Amoret tell Ledger now or wait longer? Is 3 months enough to prove Zephyrin's changed? And subscribe, because what happens next is going to be the most important conversation of all their lives. 3 days later, Amoret sat Ledger down after dinner. Her hands were shaking. She'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times in her head, but now that the moment was here, every prepared word felt inadequate. Ledger, baby, we need to talk about something important. He looked up from his homework, immediately concerned. Am I in trouble? No, not at all. I need to tell you something. About Z. Interest replaced concern. Okay, what about him? Amoret took a breath. Remember how you asked me about your dad? About whether he knew you existed? Yeah. Well, I need to tell you the whole truth now. Because you're getting older, and because you deserve to know. Ledger set down his pencil, giving her his full attention. Zephyrin, he's not just my old friend from college. She paused, gathering courage. He's your father. Ledger stared at her, processing. Z, is my dad? Yes. My actual dad? Like, biologically? Yes, baby. A smile started to form on Ledger's face. Then confusion replaced it. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I wanted to make sure he was serious. That he wasn't going to disappear. I needed to protect you. From him? From getting hurt if he left again. Ledger's expression shifted. He left before? This was the hard part. The part Amoret had been dreading. When you were a baby, before you were born actually, Z and I were together. But then he got really busy with his job and we lost touch. He didn't know I was pregnant, didn't know about you. So he didn't leave on purpose? It's more complicated than that. He stopped answering my calls, stopped talking to me, not because of you, he didn't know about you yet, but because he was focused on other things. Ledger processed this with his usual seriousness. Did he know you tried to tell him? Eventually, yes, but not at first. There were people who kept us from talking to each other. That's not fair. No, it wasn't. But he knows now? Yes, he's known for a few months. That's why he's been around. He wanted to meet you, get to know you. Ledger's face went through rapid transformations. Confusion, excitement, joy. So, Z, Dad, he's been my dad this whole time, and I didn't know? Yes. And now I can call him Dad? The question caught Amoret off guard. If you want to, that's up to you and him. Ledger jumped up from the table, suddenly energized. This is amazing. I have a dad, and he's Z. He's nice, and he knows about science, and he comes to my games, and he's my dad. The enthusiasm was infectious. Amoret felt relief wash over her. Then Ledger stopped, face clouding. Wait, why didn't he come before, when I was little? Here it was, the harder question. Because he didn't know about you, sweetheart. I tried to tell him, but I couldn't reach him. And then time passed and I decided to raise you on my own. But if you'd tried harder, he would have come, right? The question cut deeper than Ledger knew. I tried as hard as I could, baby. Why didn't you keep trying? Why did you give up? I didn't give up. I made a choice to protect us, to build a life without waiting for someone who might never show up. Ledger's face was red now, emotion building. But he would have. He's here now. He cares about me. Maybe if you'd just tried harder. Ledger, maybe I could have had a dad my whole life instead of just now. The accusation hung in the air between them. Amoret felt tears on her own face. You're right. Maybe if things had been different, you would have. But I made the best decisions I could with the information I had. I was scared and alone and trying to protect you. From what? From exactly this. From getting attached to someone who might leave, from hoping for something that might never happen. Ledger's eyes filled with tears. But he didn't leave. He's here. You were wrong. The words hurt more than Amoret expected. You're right, she said quietly. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. Ledger wiped his eyes angrily. I want to talk to him, to Dad. I want to hear his side. Okay, we can call him right now if you want. I want to see him, in person. It's 8:30 at night, Ledger. I don't care. This is important. Amoret pulled out her phone and texted Zephyrin. Ledger knows. He wants to see you. Can you come over? The response was immediate. On my way. 20 minutes. Ledger spent the 20 minutes asking rapid-fire questions. What's his favorite color? Does he like space? Why did he stop talking to you? Does he have other kids? Is he going to leave again? Amoret answered what she could. I don't know. For the rest, When the knock came, Ledger ran to the door before Amoret could stop him. She opened it to find Zephyrin standing there, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. He'd clearly rushed over, shirt slightly untucked, hair disheveled from running his hands through it. "Hi," he said. "Hi." Ledger appeared beside Amoret, staring at Zephyrin with new eyes. "You're my dad." It wasn't a question, it was a statement, testing the words. Zephyrin's voice was rough with emotion. "Yes, I am. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because your mom wanted to make sure I was serious, that I was going to stick around, and she was right to wait. I needed to prove myself." "But you are my dad." "Yes." "My whole life?" "Biologically, yes, but I haven't been there for most of it. That's on me. I'm so sorry, Ledger." Ledger walked closer, studying Zephyrin's face with intense focus. "We have the same eyes." "We do. And the same nose. Kind of." "Kind of? Do we like the same things?" "I don't know yet. But I'd like to find out." Ledger was quiet for a moment, processing with the weight of someone much older than 7. Then, "Where were you?" The question every child of an absent parent asks eventually. Zephyrin knelt down so they were eye level. "I was building a company, working all the time, making choices that seemed important but really weren't. And I didn't know about you. Your mom tried to tell me, but I wasn't paying attention. I was too focused on the wrong things." "Do you wish you'd known?" "Every single day. I wish I'd been there when you were born, when you took your first steps, when you said your first words. I wish I'd been there for all of it." "But you weren't." "No, I wasn't. And I can't change that. All I can do is be here now and hope that's enough." Ledger considered this with his characteristic seriousness. "Are you going to leave again?" "No." "How do I know?" "Because I've changed my whole life to be here. I moved. I changed jobs. I'm all in, Ledger. I promise you." Promises can be broken. The wisdom of that statement, coming from a 7-year-old, broke Zephyrin's heart. "You're right, they can. So instead of asking you to trust my promises, I'm asking you to watch my actions. If I say I'm coming to your game, I'll be there. If I say we'll hang out Saturday, we will. You hold me accountable, okay?" Ledger nodded slowly. "Okay." Then, shockingly, he stepped forward and hugged Zephyrin, just walked into his arms and wrapped his small hands around Zephyrin's neck. Zephyrin's arms came around his son, the first time he'd ever held him. And something inside his chest cracked wide open. Amoret watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. When Ledger pulled back, he looked at Zephyrin seriously. "Can I call you Dad?" Zephyrin's voice broke. "I would be honored." "Okay, Dad." He tested the word, smiled. "Dad, I like how that sounds." "Me too, buddy. Me too." "Dad, do you want to see my room? I have a model of the solar system." "I would love to see your room." Ledger grabbed Zephyrin's hand, his small hand fitting perfectly into Zephyrin's larger one, and pulled him down the hallway. Amoret followed, watching her son show his father the life he'd built. The books, the drawings, the science projects, the evidence of 7 years lived without him. Zephyrin listened to every word like it was scripture, asked questions, showed genuine interest, proved with every interaction that he meant what he'd said about being all in, and for the first time in 7 years, Amoret's small apartment felt full. Not just full, complete. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. Ledger had been talking about the game all week, but now his excitement had a different quality. "My dad is coming, my actual dad, to watch me play." He'd told everyone, his team, his teacher, Mrs. Chen, random people at the grocery store. Amoret watched with a mixture of joy and anxiety. Joy that Ledger was so happy. Anxiety about what would happen if Zephyrin somehow disappointed him. She arrived at the field at 9:45 a.m. for the 10 a.m. game. Zephyrin was already there, sitting in the bleachers, wearing jeans and a Riverside Elementary soccer t-shirt he'd clearly bought just for this occasion. He waved when he saw them. Ledger's entire face lit up. "Dad!" He ran over, leaving Amoret behind. Zephyrin stood, and Ledger crashed into him with a hug. "You came! I promised I would." "I know, but you're early." "Wanted to make sure I got a good seat." Other parents were watching with curiosity. This man, who'd suddenly appeared in Ledger's life. Amoret could see the questions in their faces but didn't care. Her son was happy. That was all that mattered. The game started at 10:03 a.m. Ledger played with intensity Amoret had never seen before. He was everywhere. Defending, passing, taking shots. Completely focused, but also joyful, glancing at the bleachers every few minutes to make sure Zephyrin was still watching. Zephyrin was on his feet for most of the game, cheering louder than anyone else. When Ledger made a particularly good pass, Zephyrin whooped. When the other team scored, he encouraged rather than criticized. He was being the dad Ledger deserved. In the second half, Ledger scored. A beautiful goal off a corner kick he'd been practicing. The ball curved perfectly into the upper corner of the net. Ledger turned immediately to the bleachers, searching for Zephyrin. Zephyrin was jumping up and down, arms raised, shouting his son's name. Ledger's smile could have powered the sun. After the game, a 3-2 win for Ledger's team, he ran straight to Zephyrin. "Did you see? Did you see my goal?" "I saw. That was incredible. The curve on that ball was perfect. I've been practicing, just like you said. It showed. I'm so proud of you." Ledger beamed, then turned to include Amoret in the celebration. "We won, Mama." "I saw, baby. That goal was beautiful. Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Amoret and Zephyrin exchanged glances. "Sure," Amoret said. "Ice cream sounds perfect." They went to the same shop where Amoret and Ledger had gone months ago. But this time, it wasn't just the two of them scraping by. It was 3 people, a family. Ledger sat between them, talking non-stop about the game, about his teammates, about the tournament coming up next month. "You'll come to that too, right, Dad?" "Absolutely. Every game you want me at. All of them. I want you at all of them." "Then I'll be there." Ledger turned to Amoret. "Mama, are you happy?" The question surprised her. "What makes you ask that?" "Because you're smiling. Like, really smiling. You don't do that very much." Amoret felt tears prick her eyes. "Yeah, baby. I'm happy." "Me too. This is the best day ever." Zephyrin's hand found Amoret's under the table, squeezed gently. She squeezed back. Over the next month, they fell into a routine. Zephyrin came to dinner twice a week. Nothing fancy. Spaghetti, tacos, whatever Amoret had time to make after work. But he was there, present, helping clean up, doing homework with Ledger, being part of their daily life. Weekend mornings became soccer practice. Zephyrin and Ledger at the park, working on corner kicks and passes while Amoret slept, actual sleep, for the first time in years, because she had help. One Saturday, Zephyrin showed up with something unexpected. "I bought a house," he said. Amoret looked up from her coffee. "You what?" "A house, here in Asheville, 3 bedrooms. Nothing extravagant, but it's got space, including a room for Ledger, if you're okay with him staying over sometimes." "You bought a house." "I told you I was all in. I meant it." Ledger, overhearing from the living room, came running. "I get my own room? At your house? If your mom says it's okay." Both of them looked at Amoret. She should have been upset, should have felt like he was overstepping, but instead, she just felt relieved. "Can I see it first? The house?" "Of course. We can go today if you want." They went that afternoon. The house was perfect. Not too big, not too small. A modest 2-story in a safe neighborhood with good schools. The room Zephyrin had designated for Ledger had been painted blue, Ledger's favorite color, and had built-in bookshelves already installed. "I didn't want to decorate without his input," Zephyrin explained. "But I wanted it to feel like his space, not just a guest room." Ledger was already planning where his telescope would go, where he'd put his books, whether Dad would help him paint stars on the ceiling. Dad came so naturally now, like the word had always been there, just waiting, After Ledger ran off to explore the backyard, Amoret stayed in his future room with Zephyrin. "This is a big step," she said. "Too big?" "No, just big." "Are you sure about this? About uprooting your life?" "My life was in the wrong place. This is where I'm supposed to be. With him. With—" He paused. "With both of you. If you'll have me." Amoret looked at him. Really looked. The boy who'd left was gone. In his place was a man who showed up, who kept promises, who put his son first. A man she could maybe, possibly, potentially trust again. "We'll see," she said. But she smiled. That night, after Ledger was asleep, Amoret and Zephyrin sat on her apartment's small balcony. It wasn't much, barely big enough for 2 chairs, but it was private, quiet. "Can I ask you something?" Zephyrin said, "You just did." "Smart ass." But he smiled. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Really forgive me?" Amoret was quiet for a long moment. "I think I already have. I didn't realize it until just now, but yeah, I think I have." "What changed?" "You did. You're not the boy who ran anymore. You're someone who stays. Someone who shows up even when it's hard. Someone who put his entire life on hold to prove to a 7-year-old that he matters." "He does matter. He's the most important thing in my life." "I know, I can see that. And that's why I forgive you. Not for what you did 7 years ago. That still hurts. But for who you've become since." Zephyrin reached for her hand. "And us? Do you think there could ever be an us again?" "I don't know. Maybe. But Zephyrin, I need you to understand, I'm not the same person I was. I've been through hell. I've raised a child alone. I've survived things you can't imagine. I'm harder now, more guarded. If there's going to be an us, it has to be built on who we are now, not who we were." "I know, and I don't expect you to be that girl from college. I loved her, but I love who you've become more. You're stronger, fiercer. You're a warrior, Amoret, and I'm in awe of you." Amoret felt tears on her face. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not? It's true. Because it makes me want to believe this is real, that we could actually work." "It is real. We can work, if you'll let me try." She looked at him in the dim light from the apartment behind them. "Okay, we can try, but slow. We go slow. As slow as you need. And if it doesn't work, if we try and it falls apart, you still show up for Ledger. You don't punish him for what happens between us. Can you promise me that?" "I promise. Ledger comes first. Always. No matter what happens between you and me." "Okay, then we can try." Zephyrin leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Gentle, reverent. "Thank you. For giving me another chance. For letting me know him. For being the most incredible mother I've ever seen. Thank you." Amoret leaned into him, letting herself relax for the first time in years. "Don't screw it up this time." "I won't. I swear I won't." And for the first time since he'd walked back into her life, Amoret believed him. This is the moment everything shifts. The moment when broken people start building something new. If you're feeling this, if you're rooting for them, I need you to engage. Hit that like button. Drop a comment. Do you believe they can make it work? Should Amoret protect her heart or take the risk? Subscribe, because what comes next is going to test everything they've built. Ed. Life was settling into something that felt almost normal. Zephyrin had been in Ledger's life for 4 months. They had routines now. Wednesday dinners, Saturday soccer, Sunday morning pancakes, at Zephyrin's new house. Amoret had even let Ledger stay overnight twice. Both times, he'd come home bubbling with stories about stargazing from Dad's backyard and making breakfast together. Things were good, better than good, which should have been Amoret's first warning that something was about to go wrong. It was a Tuesday evening. Amoret had just gotten home from her afternoon shift at Groundwork Coffee. Ledger was at Mrs. Chen's doing homework. She had 45 minutes before she needed to pick him up and get ready for her night shift. She was making coffee when the knock came. Sharp, insistent, angry. Amoret opened the door to find a woman she'd never met, but recognized immediately from Google searches she'd done months ago. Reverie Marchand. Zepherin's ex-fiancée. She was exactly as the photos suggested, beautiful, polished, expensive, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than Amoret's monthly rent, hair perfect, makeup flawless, the kind of woman who belonged in Zepherin's world. Unlike Amoret, who smelled like coffee grounds and looked like she'd slept 3 hours. Because she had, "Can I help you?" Amoret asked, "Are you Amoret Kinsley?" "Who's asking?" Reverie Marchand, Zepherin's fiancée. Ex-fiancée, Amoret wanted to say, but something in Reverie's face stopped her. "I know who you are," Amoret said instead. "Good. Then you know why I'm here." "Actually, I don't." Reverie's laugh was bitter. "He didn't tell you?" "Of course he didn't. That's Zepherin's specialty, keeping secrets." "What are you talking about?" "We're still engaged. The wedding is in 6 weeks. Or it was, until he disappeared to North Carolina 4 months ago and stopped returning my calls." Amoret's stomach dropped. "You're still engaged?" "Legally, yes. Emotionally?" Reverie's expression was hard to read. "I don't know anymore, but I deserve answers, and I deserve to meet the woman who destroyed my life." "I didn't destroy anything. I didn't even know you existed until—" "Until what? Until he showed up here playing devoted father? Let me guess. He told you he ended things with me, that he chose you and the kid. He said you'd broken up, that it was mutual." "Mutual?" Reverie's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Is that what he called it? He texted me that he needed space 4 months ago and then vanished. That's not mutual. That's abandonment." Amoret felt sick. I don't understand." "Of course you don't. Because Zephyrin is very good at making people believe what he wants them to believe. It's what makes him such a successful entrepreneur." Before Amoret could respond, another voice cut in. "Reverie, what are you doing here?" Zephyrin stood at the bottom of the apartment stairs, looking panicked. Reverie turned on him. "What am I doing here? What are you doing here, Zephyrin?" "Oh wait, let me guess. Playing house with your secret family while I plan a wedding you have no intention of attending?" "We broke up." "I told you. You told me you needed space. You said you had personal business to handle. You never said, 'Reverie, I have a 7-year-old son and I'm moving to North Carolina permanently.' You just disappeared." I tried to explain. "You tried nothing. You sent a text and then stopped answering my calls." Amoret stepped back, feeling like an intruder in her own doorway. I'll let you two talk." "No." Reverie turned to her. "You should hear this. You should know exactly who you're dealing with." "Reverie, please," Zephyrin said. "Don't do this." "Don't do what? Tell the truth? You're good at hiding from that, aren't you?" Zephyrin climbed the stairs, positioning himself between Amoret and Reverie. "Can we please talk about this somewhere private?" "Why? Ashamed of me meeting your other girlfriend?" "She's not my girlfriend. She's the mother of my child." "Oh, so that makes it better? You have a child you never mentioned, a whole other life you never told me about." "I just found out about him. I told you that." 4 months ago. You found out 4 months ago, and you're still here. You moved here, bought a house. You've been playing father while I've been—" Her voice cracked. "While I've been planning centerpieces and sending invitations and telling everyone that you were just busy with work." Amoret felt her heart breaking for this woman. For herself. For the situation Zephyrin had created through cowardice and avoidance. "Reverie, I'm sorry," Zephyrin said. "I should have been clearer. Should have had this conversation face to face instead of over text. You deserve better than that." "I deserved honesty. I deserved to know that the man I was going to marry had a secret child. I deserved—" She stopped, wiping her eyes. "You know what? I don't even know what I deserved anymore." She turned back to Amoret. "Did he tell you we were engaged?" Amoret's throat was tight. "Eventually. Not at first." "Of course not. That would require honesty, something Zephyrin struggles with." "That's not fair," Zephyrin protested. "Isn't it?" Reverie's voice was sharp. "You hid a child from me for months. You hid her from me. You lived a double life and then acted wounded when I showed up demanding answers. I wasn't living a double life. I was trying to figure things out. By lying to both of us, by making me think we had a future while you were here building one with someone else. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Zephyrin? Explain it to me. Explain how you're not doing exactly what you did to her 7 years ago, running away when things get complicated instead of having difficult conversations. The words landed like a slap. Amoret flinched. Because Reverie was right, Zephyrin had done the same thing. Avoided, delayed, let silence do the work of honesty, because confrontation was uncomfortable. I didn't run away, Zephyrin said quietly. I chose Ledger. I chose my son. Then say that! Reverie's voice broke. Say, Reverie, I'm ending our engagement because I have a son and I need to be here for him. Don't send a text about needing space and then ghost me for 4 months. You're right. I handled it terribly. I was a coward. Again. And I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix the wedding I've cancelled, the explanations I've had to give, the humiliation of everyone knowing you left me for another woman. I didn't leave you for another woman. I left because I have a child who needs me. And what about me? What about what I needed? I know I let you down. But Reverie, we weren't in love, not really. Our engagement was strategic, a partnership. We both knew that. Reverie's laugh was hollow. Just because I knew it doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Just because our relationship was practical doesn't mean I didn't care about you. Zephyrin looked genuinely stricken. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You never asked. The three of them stood there, a triangle of hurt and miscommunication and choices that couldn't be undone. Finally, Amoret spoke. I think you two need to talk. Alone. I'm going to pick up Ledger. She grabbed her keys and walked past both of them, down the stairs, away from the confrontation. Behind her, she could hear Reverie's voice, sharp with pain. Is she worth it? Is all this worth throwing away everything we built? And Zephyrin's quiet response, he is. My son is worth everything. Amoret kept walking. Amoret picked up Ledger from Mrs. Chen's in a daze. Mama, are you okay? You look sad. I'm fine, baby, just tired. You're always tired. I know. They walked home slowly, Ledger chattering about his homework and the science project he was planning, Amoret responding on autopilot. When they got back to the apartment, Zephyrin's car was gone. So was Reverie's. A note was taped to her door. We need to talk. I'll call you tonight. I'm sorry. Z. Amoret crumpled the note and threw it away. After putting Ledger to bed, she called Rhea. He lied to me. Who? Zephyrin? He said he'd ended his engagement. Said it was mutual. But his fiancée showed up tonight and she had no idea they were broken up. She's been planning their wedding while he's been here playing father. Oh, honey. I let myself trust him. I let Ledger trust him. And he's been lying this whole time. Did he explain? I didn't stick around for explanations. I left, let them hash it out. Okay, that's probably smart. But Amoret, you need to hear him out before you make any decisions. Why? So he can feed me more lies? What? Because he might have a legitimate explanation, and because Ledger deserves to know the truth. Ledger deserves a father who doesn't lie. Agreed. But jumping to conclusions without all the information doesn't help anyone. Amoret knew Rhea was right, but the old wounds were open again. The fear that Zephyrin was exactly who she'd been afraid he was, someone who said the right things but couldn't follow through, someone who would hurt them. Again, her phone rang. Zephyrin's name on the screen. She let it go to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. Third call, she answered. What? Please let me explain. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can I come over? Ledger's asleep, and I have to leave for work in an hour. Then tomorrow. Please, give me a chance to explain. Fine, tomorrow. 2 p.m. The park. Thank you. She hung up without responding. The next day, Amoret dropped Ledger at school. and went straight to the park. Zephyrin was already there, sitting on their usual bench, looking like he hadn't slept. Good. Neither had she. She sat down, leaving space between them. Talk. I messed up. Again. I should have been clearer with Reverie from the beginning. Should have ended things explicitly instead of just asking for space. Why didn't you? Because I'm a coward. Because having hard conversations means facing the fact that I hurt people, and I'd rather avoid than confront. That's not an excuse. I know. It's an explanation, not a justification. Amoret crossed her arms. Did you tell her you were ending the engagement or not? I told her I needed space to deal with finding out about Ledger. She said we could work through it. I said I didn't think we could. She said to call her when I figured things out, and then I just didn't. For 4 months. For 4 months. I thought the silence was clear, that she understood it was over, but I should have said it explicitly. I should have had the actual conversation instead of assuming. You're good at assuming, good at avoiding. Yes, I am, and I'm sorry. They sat in silence. I talked to Reverie last night, really talked. I told her explicitly that our engagement is over, that I'm here for Ledger and I'm not coming back to San Francisco, that she deserves someone who actually loves her. We cancelled the wedding officially, together. She's hurt and angry, but we ended it properly this time. Good for you. Want a medal? No, I want you to know that I'm not lying to you. I'm not maintaining a double life. I'm here, committed to Ledger, committed to building something with you if you'll still let me. You should have told me the truth from the beginning, that your engagement wasn't officially over, that you were still figuring things out. You're absolutely right. I should have. I thought I was protecting you from complications, but really I was protecting myself from having to admit I was handling things badly. So what now? Now I'm asking for another chance, to prove I can be honest, to prove I can have hard conversations instead of running from them, to prove I'm different from who I was 7 years ago. Amoret looked at him, really looked. He was different. She could see that, but he was also the same in ways that scared her. Same patterns, same avoidance, just with better intentions. I don't know if I can do this, she said quietly. Do what? Keep giving you chances. Keep hoping you'll be different this time. Keep risking Ledger's heart on the possibility that you've actually changed. What are you saying? I'm saying I need time, space, to figure out if I can actually trust you, or if I'm just desperate for help and confusing that with trust. How much time? I don't know. But Zephyrin, you keep showing up for Ledger. Whatever happens between us, you keep showing up for him. Can you promise me that? I already did. Ledger comes first, always. No matter what happens between you and me. Then we'll see. But I need space. No dinners, no family outings, just you and Ledger. Let me figure out my feelings without the pressure of us. It hurt to say, but it was necessary. Zephyrin nodded, pain evident on his face. Okay, I understand. Do you? Yes. You're protecting yourself, protecting Ledger. I get it, and I'll respect it. Good. She stood to leave. Amoret? Yeah? I love you. I've loved you since college. I've loved you through 7 years of stupidity, and I'll love you even if you decide you can't trust me again. That doesn't change. The words should have made her happy. Instead, they just made her tired. Love isn't enough, Zephyrin. It never has been. She walked away, leaving him on the bench. That night, Ledger asked the question Amoret had been dreading. Why isn't Dad coming to dinner anymore? We're just taking a little break, sweetheart. From what? From spending so much time together, but you still get to see him. He'll pick you up for soccer on Saturday. But why can't he come here? How did she explain adult complications to a 7-year-old? Sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out. Are you and Dad fighting? No, we're just taking time to think. About what? About what's best for everyone. Ledger's face fell. Is he leaving? No, baby, he's not leaving. He'll still be your dad. He'll still come to your games and help with homework. We're just not all doing things together for a while. Why not? Because I need to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons, that we're building something real, not just something that looks nice on the surface. Ledger processed this with his usual seriousness. But I like when we're all together. I know you do, sweetheart, and maybe we will be again. But right now, I need you to trust me that this is what's best. Okay, Mama, I trust you. He hugged her tight, and Amoret felt like the worst person in the world, because she was taking away something that made her son happy. Not because it was bad for him, but because she was scared. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of Zephyrin leaving. Scared of everything falling apart. Later that night, her phone buzzed. Text from Zephyrin. Ledger just called me. He's worried we're breaking up. I told him we're not, that we're just figuring things out. I hope that's okay. Amoret stared at the message. They weren't breaking up, because they'd never really been together. Not officially. They'd just been dancing around possibilities while pretending 7 years of hurt didn't exist between them. She typed back, "That's fine. Keep reassuring him. He needs to know you're not leaving." "I'm not. I promise." She put the phone down and stared at the ceiling of her apartment. The same ceiling she'd stared at for 7 years while building a life alone. The same ceiling that had witnessed her tears and her triumphs and her desperate prayers that things would get better. They had gotten better. Zephyrin showing up had made things better. But better didn't mean healed. And Amoret was starting to realize that maybe she needed to heal before she could build anything lasting with anyone. Even someone she'd once loved. Even someone she might still love. Even someone who was trying desperately to be better. We've hit the complication. The moment when everything that seemed to be working starts to fall apart. If you're feeling this, if you're angry at Zephyrin, or sympathetic to Amoret, or just desperate for them to figure it out, I need you to engage. Comment. Is Amoret being too harsh or protecting herself wisely? Should Zephyrin have handled Reverie differently? Hit that like button and subscribe because what comes next will determine whether this family survives. 6 weeks passed in a painful new routine. Zephyrin picked Ledger up for soccer every Saturday, helped with homework twice a week at the library, neutral ground, attended every game, every school event, every moment Ledger needed him. But he and Amoret barely spoke beyond logistics. Ledger needs new cleats. I'll get them. His science fair is Tuesday. I'll be there. Polite, functional, devastatingly distant. Ledger noticed, but didn't complain. He'd learned to read the tension between them and navigate it with the emotional intelligence of someone twice his age. "Dad, are you and Mama okay?" "We're fine, buddy. Just figuring some things out." "That's what Mama says too." "Because it's true." "Okay. But Dad?" "Yeah?" "I miss when we all ate dinner together." Zephyrin's chest ached. "Me too, Ledger, me too." Meanwhile, Amoret was struggling. The space she'd asked for had given her clarity, but not the kind she'd hoped for. She missed him, missed the way he made Ledger laugh, missed the help with bedtime routines, missed having another adult who cared about their son as much as she did. But more than that, and this scared her, she missed him. Not as Ledger's father, as himself. She missed their conversations, the way he listened, the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the room. "You're miserable," Rhea observed during a shift at Mercy Heights. "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar. What's going on?" "I asked Zephyrin for space, got space. Now I don't know if I want it." "So tell him that." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because what if I'm just scared of being alone? What if I'm confusing gratitude for love? What if I let him back in and he hurts us again?" Rhea was quiet for a moment. "You want my honest opinion?" "Always." "You're self-sabotaging. You've spent 7 years building walls to protect yourself and Ledger. Now someone's trying to climb over those walls and you're making them higher because you're terrified of what happens if he actually makes it to the other side." "That's not." "It absolutely is. Amoret, that man has shown up every single day for 6 months. He moved his entire life. He ended his engagement. He bought a house. He's doing everything you asked. And you're still punishing him for something he did 7 years ago when he was a completely different person." The words stung because they were true. What if he leaves? Amoret whispered, what if he doesn't? What if you spend the rest of your life pushing away the one person who's actually fighting for you because you're too scared to believe he means it? Amoret didn't have an answer for that. The breaking point came at Ledger's science fair. It was the biggest event of his year. He'd been working on his project for months. Something about plant growth and variables that Amoret barely understood, but was incredibly proud of. She arrived at the school gym at 6:30 p.m., exhausted from a double shift, but determined not to miss it. Zephyrin was already there, standing near Ledger's display, helping him adjust his poster board. They locked eyes across the room. Both looked away. The fair started at 7 p.m. Parents and students milled around, examining projects. Judges moved from table to table with clipboards. Ledger's display was impressive, detailed, thorough. Exactly the kind of work a gifted 7-year-old would produce with support and encouragement. The kind of work that required two parents helping. Amoret and Zephyrin stood on opposite sides of the table, both encouraging Ledger, both avoiding each other. It was terrible. At 7:45 p.m., they announced the winners. Third place, Emma Rodriguez. Second place, Jackson Miller. First place, Ledger Kinsley. Ledger's face exploded with joy. He looked immediately at his parents, both of them, seeking their pride. Amoret was crying, Zephyrin was beaming, and Ledger, holding his ribbon, said the words that broke everything open. I wish we could celebrate together, all of us, like a real family. The gym was full of people, but in that moment, it was just the three of them. Amoret looked at Zephyrin over their son's head. Zephyrin looked back, and something unspoken passed between them. After the fair, Ledger went home with Mrs. Chen so Amoret and Zephyrin could talk. They stood in the school parking lot, under flickering streetlights, finally facing each other honestly. I'm sorry, Amoret said. For what? For punishing you for the past, for not giving you credit for everything you've done in the present, for being too scared to admit that I still have feelings for you. Zephyrin went very still. Say that again. I have feelings for you. I've tried not to. I've tried to keep it about Ledger, but Zephyrin, I miss you. I miss us, and I'm terrified that if I admit that, you'll leave, or I'll get hurt, or Ledger will lose you. So, I've been keeping you at arm's length, because that feels safer than risking my heart again. You're not going to lose me. I'm not leaving. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. You're right. I can't promise the future, but I can promise today, and tomorrow, and the day after that. I can promise to keep showing up, to keep fighting for us, to keep being the father Ledger deserves and the man you deserve. What if it's not enough? Then it's not enough, but we won't know unless we try, really try. Not this half-in thing we've been doing. Amoret took a shaky breath. I'm scared. I know. So am I. But Amoret, I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. She stepped closer. If we do this, if we really try, I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more avoiding hard conversations, no more letting silence do the work of honesty. If something's wrong, we talk about it, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. I promise. And if it doesn't work out between us, you still show up for Ledger. You don't let our relationship affect his. I've already promised you that. Multiple times. Ledger is my son. Nothing changes that. Amoret nodded, tears streaming down her face. Okay, then let's try. Really try. Zephyrin cupped her face in his hands. Can I kiss you? I thought you'd never ask. He kissed her in a parking lot that smelled like asphalt and possibility. Kissed her like 7 years of longing had finally found release. Kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying. I love you, Zephyrin said. I've loved you since the library. I've loved you through my stupidity and your strength. I'll love you for the rest of my life if you'll let me. I love you too. I've tried not to, but I do. So what now? Now we go home and tell our son that we're figuring it out. Together. They picked up Ledger from Mrs. Chen's together. He took one look at their faces, tear-stained but smiling, and asked the question, Are you guys okay? We're better than okay, Amoret said. We need to talk to you about something, all three of us. They sat in Amoret's living room, the same living room where she'd told Ledger about Zephyrin months ago. Dad and I have been doing some thinking, Amoret started. About what? About us, about our family, about what we want. Ledger looked between them. And what do you want? We want to try being together, Zephyrin said. Not just as your parents, but as, well, as people who care about each other, who love each other. Ledger's face lit up. Like, together, like boyfriend and girlfriend? Amoret laughed. Something like that. Is that okay with you? Are you kidding? That's amazing. Does this mean Dad's coming to dinner again? If that's okay with you. It's so okay. Can we have pancakes tomorrow, all of us? Absolutely. Ledger hugged both of them, squeezing tight. This is the best day ever, even better than winning the science fair. After putting Ledger to bed, together, both of them reading his bedtime story, Amoret and Zephyrin stood in her doorway. Stay, she said quietly. You sure? I'm sure. No more keeping you at arm's length. You're in this. We're in this. So Zephyrin stayed. They talked until 2 a.m. about everything, the past, the present, the future they wanted to build, and for the first time in 7 years, Amoret fell asleep feeling safe. 6 months later, life looked completely different. Zephyrin had fully transitioned out of his CEO role, maintaining only his chairman position with Callaway Technologies. He worked remotely 3 days a week, spent the other 4 focused on Ledger and Amoret. Amoret had quit her job at Mercy Heights, the night shift that had been killing her. She still worked at Groundwork Coffee, but only 3 days a week now. The rest of the time she spent with Ledger. Actually spent, not exhausted, half presence. They weren't living together yet. Both agreed that was a step to take slowly for Ledger's sake. But Zephyrin was at the apartment most nights, and Ledger spent weekends at his house. They were building something, slowly, carefully, honestly. One Saturday evening, they sat on Zephyrin's back porch while Ledger played in the yard. I talked to my mother, Zephyrin said. Amoret looked up. And? I told her she could meet Ledger, supervised, if she apologizes to you first. I don't need her apology. You deserve it, and she needs to give it. I'm not letting her back into our lives until she acknowledges what she did. And if she refuses, then she doesn't meet her grandson. Her choice. Amoret leaned her head on his shoulder. You've changed so much. Had good motivation. Still, the Zephyrin I knew in college would never have stood up to his mother. The Zephyrin you knew in college was a coward. I'm trying to be better. You are better. You're exactly who Ledger needs you to be, who I need you to be. And who's that? Present, honest, committed, yourself. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their son play. Amoret? Yeah? Marry me. She sat up, looking at him in shock. What? Not now, not soon, but someday, when you're ready, when Ledger's ready. Marry me, build a life with me. Let me spend the rest of my existence proving I'm worth the chance you gave me. Amoret's eyes filled with tears. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. I'll do better when it's official. This is just me putting it out there, letting you know my intentions. Your intentions, huh? My intentions are to love you and Ledger for the rest of my life, to show up every day, to be the family we should have been 7 years ago. We're not the same people we were 7 years ago. No, we're better, stronger. We've survived things that would have broken us then. Amoret was quiet for a long moment. Ask me again in a year. A year? A year, if we're still this happy, still this solid. Ask me again and I'll say yes. You're going to make me wait a year? I made you wait 7. What's one more? Zephyrin laughed and pulled her close. Fair enough. 1 year. I'll be counting down the days. Dad! Mama! Come see! Ledger called from the yard. They stood together, hands linked, and walked to where their son was pointing at stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. That one's Venus, Ledger said, pointing. And that one's Mars. And over there, tell us everything, Zephyrin said. So Ledger did, explained constellations and planets, and the vast universe beyond their small yard. And Amoret stood there, surrounded by the two people she loved most in the world, and realized something. They'd made it, through betrayal and forgiveness, through fear and faith, through 7 years of separation and 6 months of rebuilding. They'd actually made it, and this time, she believed it would last. This is where we are, a family built from brokenness, love reconstructed from ruins. If this story moved you, if it challenged you, if it made you believe in second chances, show me. Hit that like button, drop a comment, sharing your biggest takeaway from Zephyrin and Amoret's journey. And subscribe to this channel because we're building something here. Not just stories, but truth. Not just entertainment, but hope. Until next time, remember, some mistakes are too big to fix, but some are just big enough to teach us who we're capable of becoming.